Blue Nose Audio presents Mafia Target, Book 4 in the Kings of Italy series, written by Mila Finelli, narrated by Antonio Amato and Troy Duran.
Chapter 1. Alessio. A Siderno rooftop on a warm September afternoon. The Calabrian sun beat down on the roof, hot and unrelenting. Familiar. I was in position early. The view from up here allowed me to see the whole street. I slipped a slice of fresh fig into my mouth and slowly chewed. Most of my time was spent alone, waiting. I didn't mind. I didn't play nice with others. This was one of the many reasons the army and I had parted ways. I pulled on the brim of my baseball cap, keeping to the shadows. There was a slight wind out of the east today, but nothing I needed to worry about. I could almost do this job in my sleep. Killing was the one thing I excelled at, and the Italian army had rewarded me for it. I served for 8 years, the most decorated sniper in the 1st Bersaglieri Regiment. We saw combat in Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, and other places I wasn't at liberty to divulge. When I left the service, people wanted me to keep killing for them. I liked this better. It allowed me to travel and to keep my own schedule. And I made a fuck-lot of money. After the number of kills climbed beyond 50, I lost track. It wasn't important. Until my hands started to shake and my eyesight failed, this was my purpose. No one is better at it. My phone rang. I looked at the display. Normally I wouldn't answer while on the job, but there were a few pieces still unknown today. This might be one of them. I tapped the glass. Pronto. Everything is in place, said Vito D'Agostino, the brother and consigliere to a Napoli Mafia don. Our man on the inside said we're a go in 45 minutes. I checked my watch. 1 o'clock exactly. I set my timer to begin a countdown. Va bene. As soon as that is done, we'll wire your assistant the remaining half of the money. This was standard, but unnecessary. I never failed. Of course, this could get ugly once word gets out. Vito had mentioned this before. I didn't care. There was a reason no one could find me unless I allowed them. Don't worry, I'll forget our association just as soon as I'm paid. Good. Vito hung up. I didn't care about repercussions. To me, this was just a job. The reasons why or what the target had done to deserve death didn't matter to me. I was collecting a paycheck for services rendered. Once I fired the shot, I would stow my rifle and head for the Ducati waiting at the base of the stairs. Minutes later, I would jump into a car and drive into the mountains. Then I would disappear for a few weeks at one of my many homes around Europe. The weather in the French countryside was particularly nice this time of year. Thinking of wine and cheese, I carefully unpacked my rifle from its case. It was the same type used by the British Special Forces, the L115A4 long-range rifle. Portable and concealable, the weapon has excellent low-light and daylight optics, a double-turn telescopic sight, and a suppressor to reduce the flash and noise. And it had never let me down. I unpacked it methodically, each piece in the same order. I never deviated. The others in my unit had called me superstitious, but they were superstitious too. Many Italians were, but snipers even more so. With my rifle assembled, I approached the edge of the building. I kept low, a dark dot on a random rooftop. I sat with my rifle and case by my feet. The roof's temperature was nearly unbearable on my skin, but I forced myself to wait it out. I'd endured worse. Soon my body adjusted, and I maintained my slow and steady breathing. 20 minutes. My target would be well guarded. I examined the address across the street where the wives' doctor worked. They would undoubtedly pull the car directly out front and try to hurry inside. I needed to be quick. I loaded the rifle. These bullets were low drag, heavier, and specially made for me by a man in Berlin. I found them more accurate than the kind I used in the military. 10 minutes. I flexed my fingers, retied my shoelaces, verified the wind and distance, adjusted my sight. There was no room for error. By the time the line of cars pulled around the corner and began to slow, I was already in position. I had the second car in my scope, as this was undoubtedly the one carrying my target. I rubbed the gold cornicello charm around my neck for luck, then put the tip of my finger on the trigger. The first car advanced down the street, but the second car, the one I was tracking, came to an abrupt halt farther up the block. The third car stopped behind it. I held my breath. Had they spotted me? Impossible. There had to be another reason. I checked the first car to make sure. He definitely wasn't in there. I shifted back to the second car. The door opened and I saw a well-dressed man emerge. Minchia. I hadn't expected this. Before I could pull the trigger, a larger man blocked my angle. Porca de puttana. Then the target helped the woman out of the car. I didn't have a clear kill shot. The entire group walked to the gelato shop, disappearing inside. I shifted my shoulders and made some quick calculations, then adjusted my scope for the new distance. I would need to kill him when he emerged from the shop. Waiting, I forced my heartbeat to slow, my breath to even out. Then I saw him. The most gorgeous man I'd ever seen stepped into my view, and it was like being struck by lightning. Colpo di fulmine. A thunderbolt. My breath left my lungs in a rush as I studied him, tall and thin, with bright blue eyes and dark hair. Young, maybe 19 or 20. His jaw was a work of art, his face absolute perfection. He hadn't shaved today, and that scruff was sexy as fuck. I followed him as he moved, needing to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. His blue shirt was tailored to fit perfectly, the color matching his eyes. His jeans clung to his long legs like the fabric had been made expressly for him. No man outside of a Milan runway had the right to look this good. Did he work for my target? He laughed at something that was said, and I stared, mesmerized. Dio, that smile. It could melt ice caps. I was attracted to both men and women, but I'd never felt a flicker of interest for anyone while on a job before now. Why this man? I watched a few more seconds, hoping for answers. Then I noticed my pulse was hammering in my ears. Cristo, I needed to focus and calm down. I jerked the sight away from the beautiful man to watch the storefront. As I waited, I tried to regulate my breathing. I hadn't been this rattled before. It was a bad sign. Basta. I would be fine. I once stayed awake for 3 days, lying in wait to successfully kill a Taliban leader. I could do this. In and out. In and out. I counted my breaths and willed my muscles to relax. But in the end, it all happened too fast. I hadn't planned for gelato or colpe di fulmine. I rushed my shots. And I missed. Chapter 2. Alessio. 4 years later. Malaga, Spain. I didn't want to be here. In fact, I wanted nothing to do with this man or his family. He was the cause of the only blunder of my career, a shameful secret that only few knew. I watched from the shadows as he strode along the dark street. He was using a different name now, as he did in every city he visited, but I would know that face anywhere. He'd grown bigger, more handsome, his jaw more angular. I felt the same jolt of awareness and attraction as I did 4 years ago. Cazzo, It was like a cruel joke. Earlier this week I received the call I had been dreading. "I need you to drop everything and go to Malaga," Don D'Agostino ordered. I swallowed a sigh. "This is for the son, I assume," Vito warned me. "He's using the name Javier Martin. I have an image of him in the Malaga airport 5 days ago. He'd caused me to miss on the Siderno street, and now they wanted me to hunt him down and kill him. No." Don D'Agostino snarled on the other end. "Do you honestly think to refuse me? You can't expect me to. What I expect is for you to do anything I fucking ask. You failed in your last job for me, and with one call I can let Ravazzani know who shot him and almost killed his pregnant wife. Is this what you want? If I kill his son, he will hunt me down like a dog. That is not my problem. Fucking mafioso. I never should have accepted the job to kill Fausto Ravazzani in the first place." Giulio Ravazzani turned the corner and I followed at a distance. It hadn't taken long to track him down once I arrived yesterday. Now it was a matter of opportunity, of finding the right place at the right time. I liked to observe my targets, learn their routines. I didn't like to rush it, if at all possible. This was no hardship with Giulio. He was gorgeous, his movements fluid. I could see the outline of a gun beneath his jacket. Smart of him, considering the number of enemies his family has accumulated over the years. He hadn't shaved for a few days, the whiskers on his jaw not quite a beard, but a sexy scruff. It's a shame I have to kill him. Pulling a baseball cap onto his head, he entered a large building. What was he doing? I slunk toward the side, keeping out of sight. There was a fire escape leading up to a higher floor. If I could reach the windows, I should be able to sneak inside. Jumping, I grabbed onto the iron bar and lifted myself up. Then I climbed the fire escape. The first window I tried was painted shut, but the next one opened. I slipped in. The old wood floor was dusty, like no one had been up here in years. My steps were careful, silent. I bent down and edged toward the sound of voices. I spotted a group of men on the ground floor. Giulio was standing beside a table, one white rectangular package in front of him. They were speaking in English. "Despite what our mutual contacts are telling me, this can't be better than the product we already import," a man wearing alligator boots said, nearly sneering at Giulio. "If you don't believe me," Giulio said, "try it." Alligator boots motioned to the brick. "If you insist." Taking out a pocket knife, Giulio cut open the package. A tiny amount of white powder fell onto the table. Giulio stepped back and gestured toward what I had to assume was coke. One of Alligator Boots' associates stepped forward. He dragged his finger through the powder, opened his mouth, and placed it on his gums. I couldn't see his face, but I heard him suck in a breath. In Spanish, he said to Alligator Boots, "That is some good shit." Cosa? How in the fuck would he know that from spreading on his gums? What about a testing kit? "I told you," Giulio confirmed. "Not only is it better quality, it's cheaper than what you are getting now." Was Giulio importing drugs into Malaga? Ma sei pazzo. The drug business was dangerous, though I supposed he was used to it, being Fausto Ravazzani's son. And it was lucrative. This would explain how Giulio was surviving outside his father's empire. "Cheaper? How?" Alligator Boots demanded. "I have contacts," was all Giulio said. "They only work with me. If you want access to this, it has to be through me." "And I'm supposed to believe you? Un niño?" A boy. All the men chuckled. "Do you like money, Senor Martinez?" "Because I do. And if you aren't interested in making it, there are 4 other men on my list. I know for certain the Bratva will say yes. Do you know what happens then?" He paused and stared Alligator Boots down. "Me and the Russians run you out of fucking business." Madre di Dio. A dark thrill skated along my spine. Giulio had balls standing up to these men. I was impressed. "What if I just kill you and save myself the trouble?" Signor Martinez asked. "Then my people will go to the Bratva and you'll still be out of business." "People!" Signor Martinez looked around dramatically, his voice laced with sarcasm. "What other people?" Now it was Giulio's turn to sneer. "Do you think I have the coca plants in my cellar? That I'm growing them, soaking the leaves and grinding them up myself? My people do this. And trust me, you do not want to fuck around with them or me." Que palle. This display of power, it was astounding. I could feel my groin tighten as lust thickened my dick. I reached down to shift myself in my jeans. Signor Martinez rubbed his jaw. "How much can you get?" 20 kilos today." "How cheap?" 1 million euros. Signor Martinez cocked his head. "For all of it?" "Yes, I know you normally pay significantly more, so I'll expect all of it up front in cash. Right now." Signor Martinez nodded once and beckoned to a man in the back of the group. The associate came forward and put a briefcase on the table next to the coke. Stacks of cash were inside, and Signor Martinez counted out the amount Giulio quoted. Giulio retrieved a duffel bag off the floor, then stuffed the cash inside. "There's a loose floorboard in the back left corner. Pull up those boards and your coke is all there." Signor Martinez sent 3 men over, and they quickly removed the boards. Then they counted the packages. "It's all here," one of them shouted. Signor Martinez said to Giulio, "If this does well, when can we—" But Giulio had already disappeared, along with the cash. The package was still on the table. A smile tugged at my lips. God, so I liked this man. He was crafty and resourceful, brave. The rumors I heard of his father were much the same, with a touch of a psychotic murderer sprinkled in, but I didn't know Giulio had it in him too. I hurried back the way I came. Soon I saw Giulio striding up the walk. I kept my head down and moved to the opposite side of the street. This allowed me to track him in the store windows rather than looking directly at him. He checked over his shoulder several times, but Signor Martinez and his man hadn't trailed him. Smoothly, he removed his baseball cap and unzipped the duffel bag. Inside was a backpack, which obviously held all the money. He dropped the empty duffel and his cap in a bin, then hefted the backpack over his shoulders. "Idiots," he said with a sly grin. Fuck me. This 22-year-old was carrying €1 million on his back. Colpo di fulmine. I rubbed my chest and tried to ease the ache there. I hadn't felt this much attraction to another person in a long time, maybe ever. I didn't understand it. He and I had never met, yet I was drawn to him. I wanted to bite his hard jaw and feel his rough hands on my dick. He went into his apartment. Currently, I was renting the place across the street, but I had no interest in watching him hide the money inside. I'd rather wait here in case he came back out. I hoped he felt the need to celebrate tonight, because that I wanted to see. I'll kill him eventually, but I didn't have to do it tonight.
Giulio. I was on the search for a distraction. The bass echoed in my chest as I wound my way through the club. Malaga was very gay-friendly, and it was easy for me to blend in. Just another man, unattached and searching for a good time. Nothing serious. I experienced something serious once. Never again. And blending in was even more important now. Someone out there wanted me dead, but I refused to give them the chance. Until I discovered and destroyed those responsible for that car bomb meant for me, the one that killed Paolo, I had to be careful. So I frequently moved cities and changed my identity, which was why I came to places like this, crowded, anonymous, in and out quickly, just long enough to satisfy this itch. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I quickly checked the name. Mimi's papa. Mimi was a nickname for Noemi, my half-sister. This was my father calling me. I declined the call and slipped my phone back in my pocket, but not before noticing there were 3 other missed calls from him. Cristo! I didn't want to hear whatever Fausto had to say, especially not right now. I'd ring him back when I finished here. A husky voice with an Andalusian accent said in my ear, "La que tú me haces," a compliment, sort of like, "what you do to me." As I turned to see if this might be tonight's choice, my gaze snagged on a different man across the room. To say he was hot didn't do him justice. This man was an inferno, but not in the classic sense. Built and tall, he had jet black hair that was just long enough to show its natural waves, olive skin that reminded me of home, and a scar running along the cheek of his face. Danger radiated off him in waves, and my dick twitched. His greyish-blue eyes were locked on me, tracking me like prey, and I shivered. I recognized a hunter when I saw one. My heart pounded, the air crackling. He was exactly my type. I liked them, menacing and stoic, with enough brawn to make me want to pin them down or shove them up against the wall. I hadn't seen him here before. This made it even more appealing. If he wasn't a regular, chances were we wouldn't run into each other again after tonight. I let my gaze wander up and down his body, the message clear. Shaking off the Andalusian hopeful, I moved toward the back of the club, toward the dark corners where people like me thrived. In those black recesses where no one could see, I could finally let loose for a few moments. A dissipation crawled over my skin, through my balls, and along my shaft. I knew the man from across the bar was following me. I could feel it through some mafioso's sixth sense or something. I was getting more turned on by the second, just imagining grabbing that thick hair while I shoved my dick in his mouth. I hadn't fucked or been fucked in a long time, not since I left Belgium. Instead, I stuck to handjobs and blowjobs, which were fast and impersonal. I got what I needed and moved on. It was enough. Darkness enveloped me as I reached the back of the club. I could hear grunts and groans, see the shape of straining figures, but I didn't stop. I liked this feeling, the buzz that built in my blood right before we got our hands on each other. A palm landed on my shoulder, spinning me. My back crashed against the wall. Che cazzo! Once I recovered from my surprise, I shifted and reversed our positions. We held there for a moment, assessing each other close up, breathing hard. It was the man from across the bar. As I'd hoped, he tracked me to this dark corner, ready for whatever came next. I could feel his dick pressed against my hip through his jeans. I was dying to taste him. But that wasn't how this worked. I had a routine. I forced them to their knees, they sucked me off, and I disappeared. No promises, no hard feelings, no reciprocation. This man, though, I could see myself on my knees for him. His muscles tightened beneath my fingertips, and he ready to move. To leave? To kiss me? I wrapped my fingers around his throat. Quédate, I growled, telling him to stay. My dick was stiff and throbbing, eager. I needed this fast and rough, then I had to leave. With a little pressure, I pushed him toward the ground. He resisted for a half-second before he sank to the floor, his face in front of my crotch. I unfastened my belt and unzipped, but that was as far as I went. I liked for them to do the rest, to reach inside my clothing and pull out my cock, to prove they were needy little sluts gagging for it. He didn't disappoint. Thick fingers dug into my jeans and briefs to find my length and expose it. My skin was hot as he gripped me tight, and I shoved my clothing lower on my hips to make it easier. His light gaze met mine as he parted his lips and sucked me deep inside his mouth. Wet heat surrounded me, and my eyes nearly rolled back in my head. "Joder," I gasped, using the Spanish equivalent of cazzo. He bobbed, his mouth creating ideal suction, while one hand remained on the base of my shaft, pulling. There was no teasing, no uncertainty, just a fast blowjob intended to get me off. Perfetto. I let myself sink into the sensation, drifting, turning off my brain. He was good, taking my cock to the entrance of his throat as I thrust my hips. I wished we had time for me to slip inside that tight passage, fuck his throat until he couldn't breathe, but that was too intimate for this. There was no time for training. I didn't do those things anymore. He relaxed and let me use him. I threaded my fingers through his thick hair and speared his mouth with my cock, the pleasure inside me coiling as I rocked. His tongue slid forward, gliding under my cock, and he gave me the tiniest scrape of his teeth. Maron, I never wanted it to end. All too soon, my balls were tingling, my muscles clenching, and my cock swelled against his tongue. With a groan, I began coming, thick jets shooting into his mouth, my hips jerking. He kept sucking, draining me, and it prolonged my orgasm. If I weren't pretending to be someone else, someone Spanish, I would praise him in Italian with all the words I knew. But my Spanish was limited, so I just stroked his hair, petting him as I tried to catch my breath. He eased off my cock and looked up at me with an unreadable expression. After a long beat, he swallowed, the muscles in his throat working as he drank my load down. Madre de Dio, that was hot. I sighed, wishing I'd met him in another life, one where I could sink to my knees and pleasure him in return, one where I wasn't on the run from the life I'd left behind. A former soldier for my father, who was one of the most powerful and dangerous men in Europe. I stepped back, tucked myself away, and zipped up. After a nod at the man still on his knees, I turned and went in the opposite direction, intent on getting outside as quickly as possible. No one stopped me. No one followed me. I was just another body in a sea of bodies. The faded light of an exit door beckoned, so I headed toward it. A minute later I was standing in an alley, the cool night air washing over me. Walking toward the street, I pulled out my phone and dialed. He answered on the first ring. "Why the fuck didn't you pick up?" Fausto snarled into my ear. "Perdonami, Papa. Would I call you 5 times if it wasn't a fucking emergency?" Yes, he would. My father didn't like to be ignored. "Is it Frankie or one of the kids?" He gave a long exhale, and I knew the sound well. He was trying to rein in his temper. "It's you, figlio mio." Relief filled me. This was nothing new. I was in constant danger. I started in the direction of my apartment, which was 4 blocks away. As always, I checked my surroundings. This had been ingrained in me since birth. Yes, someone has taken out a hit on you. I wanted to roll my eyes, but that was disrespectful to my father, even if he couldn't see me. A hit had been out on me for more than 4 years, but I was smart enough to not let them find me. "Oh," I said to my father, "you sound unsurprised at this news." Nothing got by Fausto. "Just tell me what you know." "Have you heard of Alessandro Ricci?" I remembered the name. Ricci was a sniper trained by the Italian military. He was rumored to be the best, used by countries to take out heads of state and other politicians. Very high-level wet work, not the kind of person normally used by the 'Ndrangheta, who prefer to handle their own murders quietly. An assassin like Ricci was too high-profile. "Good. Then I won't have to explain how dangerous this is for you. I want you to come—" "No!" I shut down that suggestion before he even finished. "I won't, so don't ask." I was a gay man, the former heir to a Mafia empire. No doubt the 'Ndrangheta would prefer to make me disappear. My very existence embarrassed them, and I would never bring that kind of danger near my half-siblings and stepmother. I was better off living far away from them. I heard a thud and imagined my father pounding a palm on his desk. After a few beats, he said, "Die, Giulio, this is not like the other." "The car bomb, you mean?" "Yes, the one that killed your ragazzo. This is very serious." As if the car bomb hadn't been. Paolo was blown up in front of my eyes, for fuck's sake. With my limited resources over the last 4 years, I'd been hunting those responsible, digging into everyone I could think of who might have planted that bomb. Fausto was convinced it had been Momo, one of his rivals, who was now dead. I wasn't sure, and until I wasn't stopping my search. And this new contract only confirmed my theory. Whoever tried to kill me in Belgium had now gone to Ricci to finish the job. Who hired Ricci? We are working on finding out. "Zio Marco?" I said, knowing my father's consigliere would be right there. "Si, Giulio." "Do you have a photo of Ricci you can send me? I want to know what he looks like." "Of course." "Giulio," my father barked. "I do not want you trying to deal with Ricci on your own. You need to be here at the Castello, where I can protect you. Get on the first flight." Was he not listening to me? Lowering my phone, I disconnected. There, he could stew for a few days. 5 years ago, I never would have hung up on my father, but I was different. Besides, I wasn't his responsibility any longer. He should be focusing on his other children, his wife, his empire. He didn't need to worry about me, a grown man. I unlocked the door to the old building where I was renting a room. When I reached my apartment, I went in and shut the door, then engaged all 4 locks. Pulling out my phone, I spent a few minutes searching the internet, but failed to uncover a photo of Ricci. Unsurprising. What good was an assassin everyone could recognize? Marco still hadn't texted the photo, so I began undressing. I was far more tired than I expected. My limbs were loose, the kind of peace only a great orgasm could provide. Today had been a good day. €1,000,000 and a fantastic blowjob. What more did a man need? I wouldn't mind a repeat performance with the guy tonight from the club. I never hooked up with the same man twice, but I could almost make an exception for another one of those mind-numbing blowjobs. My phone chimed with a text. Marco. I opened the message, and all the air left my lungs in a rush. Dropping onto my bed, I stared at the image. It was blurry and taken from an awkward angle, but there was no mistaking that face. This couldn't be right. There had to be some mistake. My ears started ringing as I tried to make sense of it. No. Cazzo madre di Dio. The man from the club, the one who had sucked my brains out through my dick, it was Alessandro Ricci.
Chapter 3. Alessio. 10 days later, Santorini, Greece. I slipped another slice of tomato in my mouth and walked along the rooftops. This was the part of the job I most liked, if I were being honest. Tracking my target allowed me to disappear, become a ghost. No one knew I was there until I was ready to let them know. Like the night I let him see me in Malaga. Giulio disappeared immediately after that blowjob. I lost him for a little bit, but caught up with him again here in Greece 5 days ago. I'd spent a lot of time researching Giulio Ravazzani since Malaga. After the car bomb in Belgium, he bounced around in the Scandinavian countries. I had to assume his Mediterranean looks made it impossible to blend in there, so he got smarter. He traveled to places where men looked more like him, began working with his former contacts to import drugs and undercut the existing local dealers. When the situation turned dangerous, and it always did for a man working alone, he moved to another city and assumed another identity. He was smart. His money sat in offshore accounts that were nearly untraceable. He wore caps in public for the CCTV cameras, switched his phone every few weeks, never logged into his social media profiles. He never let down his guard, except for his late-night visits to clubs. Giulio couldn't seem to resist the lure of anonymous encounters. Each one was the same as it had been with me. A dark corner, a man on his knees with Giulio's cock in his mouth. Giulio never offered relief in exchange, instead immediately departing after shooting his load and returning to his apartment. That I was one of many didn't sit well with me. The hookup in Malaga had been different. Good. Satisfying. Though he hadn't touched me. I couldn't explain it. But to know he did this over and over again, a different man every time, it soured the memory for me. He's just a job. I couldn't forget this. Enzo D'Agostino had my balls in a vice, and my only priority was to assassinate the Ravazzani heir. Otherwise, my career as an assassin was over. Word would get around that I failed. No one would hire me after that. Word would also get to Fausto Ravazzani that I pulled the trigger in Siderno 4 years ago. He would hunt me down with all the resources at his disposal. So why wasn't Giulio dead already? Maybe because I found this man fascinating. I knew what it was like to live secretly in a dangerous world. Desperate to leave home, I joined the Italian military when I was 17. By that point, I knew I was bisexual, and being around so many men meant I had to be extremely careful. Encounters were fleeting and kept very, very quiet. Giulio turned and entered an open-air food market. My phone buzzed. With Giulio shopping, I had a free minute to check who was ringing me. I tapped the glass. Pronto? Where are you? Former Russian intelligence, Sasha, oversaw my business. She was ruthless, cold, and methodical. Exactly like me. On a rooftop, I answered. I was contacted by a Serbian? No. Do you not even want to hear how much? No. I was not for hire at the moment. When I completed this job, I would go to Serbia or Tanzania or New Zealand, wherever the fuck. But for right now, I was working on Giulio. Is that all? Mutak, she swore in Russian. I am sitting around doing nothing. A waste of my valuable time. You are dragging your feet. Just kill him already and... I disconnected. Giulio had paid for his vegetables and was leaving the market. I needed to move. The rooftops were close together here, which made it easy to travel the city from up above. Giulio had no idea he was being tracked, though he kept his head down and didn't speak to anyone. I admired the shift of his broad shoulders, the smooth muscles under his clothing. My nonna would have called him un vero fusto, a real hunk. In her later years, she watched a lot of American reality television shows which had colored her already robust vocabulary. I still missed her. She had been the only person I gave a shit about in my entire life. I popped the last piece of tomato into my mouth and jumped onto the next roof. A couple was making out on the far side, but they didn't notice me as I crept silently along. Giulio walked to his apartment, probably to fix pranzo. He favored risotto, usually mushroom, then a frittata. To finish, he would slice apricots or peaches. Then he would work on his laptop or watch something on his tablet. Pass the time until he could go out to a nightclub. The mornings were my favorite, though. After drinking café, he completed a rigorous workout routine while clad only in a pair of tight briefs. There were push-ups and pull-ups, high-intensity jumps and lunges. His cock and balls were on display, and I enjoyed watching them as he moved. Sometimes he would put on clothes and go out for a jog after. I easily trailed him, though I rose before dawn to run 10 miles every day. When he reached his building, I stayed on the roof, hidden in the shadows. I rented the apartment directly across from his, but it was a nice afternoon, and I liked to be outside. He started playing music and took out his vaping pen. I never drank or smoked, so I didn't understand the appeal, but seeing Giulio sprawled on the couch, his dark hair falling over his brow as he let his lungs fill, was incredibly sexy. He would soon be loose and relaxed, and I wished I could crawl between his legs and lick him all over, suck on him until he came down my throat again. It would be no effort at all to kill him right now. I had an easy shot, straight through the window and into his forehead. There was no wind today, and he'd never spot me up here. But I wouldn't. There was plenty of time to do what needed to be done. For now, I was curious. Why was I so fascinated with this man? I cursed myself for ever taking the job to kill Fausto Ravazzani. I normally didn't involve myself in the petty squabbling of the Mafia, but I was a hired gun, nothing more. No allegiances, no loyalty except to myself. If someone had enough money, I was available. Still, I shouldn't have attempted a job on the 17th of the month. It was terrible luck, but D'Agostino's people had pushed, saying this was the only day Ravazzani would be outside the castello. An appointment at his wife's obstetrician. And I had failed. Giulio's phone buzzed. He checked the caller, then tossed the phone onto the table. His father, most likely. Don Ravazzani was keeping close tabs on his eldest son now that word about the hit had circulated. No doubt he was pressuring Giulio to return to Siderno. Thankfully, Giulio resisted, which was foolish on his part. Other than the Vatican, the Castello was the one place in the world where I couldn't get to him. Probably. The phone buzzed again. With a heavy sigh, Giulio picked it up and read the screen. He grinned and accepted the call. Ciao, Matrigna. Francesca Ravazzani, then. The two of them were close, talking almost every day. Whatever she said made him chuckle, softening the harsh bitterness normally lurking around his eyes. Or maybe it was the effects of the weed. Mesmerized, I couldn't look away from him, while my dick thickened with the memory of Malaga. Annoyed with myself, I heaved a small, imperceptible sigh. Giulio's head snapped toward the windows, and his gaze locked with mine. I held perfectly still. Had he spotted me? No. It was impossible. I was concealed by the shadows, my clothing blending in with the surroundings. And besides, no one ever spotted me. In a blink, he rolled off the sofa and disappeared from sight. Minchia. He'd spotted me.
Giulio. 2 months later, Isle of Canna, Scotland, UK. My balls would soon freeze off. Growing up in southern Italy, I was used to warm weather, sunshine, rolling green hills and wine. This was the exact opposite. Scotland was fucking cold. A tiny island in the Inner Hebrides, Canna was 4 miles long and 1 mile wide. The population was only 16, including me, and these people didn't care for outsiders. Most looked at me like I was a wild animal. I couldn't give a shit. This place was remote as fuck. Only 3 ferries went in and out during a given week, mostly for supplies. Let Alessandro Ricci find me here. How that Corleone tracked me to Greece was a mystery. Changing countries, phones, and names wasn't enough to elude him, obviously. I discarded anything that might leave a digital footprint in Santorini. Then I went completely off the grid. I hadn't touched my bank accounts, no calls or messages to anyone I knew. I bought a farmhouse when I first arrived here, and I lived simply. It was lonely, but I was alive. The lack of devices meant my investigation into Paolo's killers had stalled. That was what bothered me most about being forced to retreat here, not the lack of movies and television shows or the absence of a decent bottle of wine. Paolo's killers remained unpunished, while I was stuck here, hiding. I hated Ricci for that alone. No doubt my father was working to eliminate the hit out on me, but I didn't want to be his responsibility any longer. I was no longer his heir, no longer in the Indrina. He needed to focus on my half-siblings and his new wife. This was my problem. I rolled my shoulders, sinking deeper into my coat, and kept walking. 3 sheep lived at the farmhouse, and I fed them every day. I grew up with lambs in Siderno, as well as pigs and horses, so I knew a little about taking care of animals. They also kept me company. My life was a sad fucking state of affairs, but I was alive. The sheep were eager to see me today, bleating as they rushed over. I knew they were only excited for the bucket in my hand, but I smiled when they nuzzled me. Ciao, amici. I spent a few minutes petting them before pouring some feed into their small container. They dove for the food, ignoring me, their heavy coats keeping them warm in the frigid temperatures. After they finished, I talked to them in Italian and gave them more attention, but soon they lost interest in me and wandered away. Sighing, I started back toward the house and thought about the long night ahead of me. I had nothing to do but read boring poetry books. There was only so much iambic pentameter I could take. Cazzo, I longed for a proper Italian cocktail or glass of Ravazzini Ciro. The farmhouse had only whiskey. I found myself walking in the direction of town, which consisted of a building with a combined pub, general store, and grocery. I went there every week for provisions, but today I felt the need for something other than whiskey. The pub was empty, so I sat on a stool at the bar. "Hello?" I called. An older woman came out from the store area, Mrs. Campbell, the owner. She reminded me of a younger Zia, and a wave of homesickness settled in my stomach like a stone. "Mr. Dracos," she said in her thick Scottish brogue. "Didn't expect to see you sitting here." Everyone believed I was Nick Dracos, a Greek writer who needed the solitude and quiet to work on his next novel. I decided to get out for a bit today. "That's good. A young laddie like you needs exercise. How long before that book of yours is finished?" "It's hard to say. I'm not a fast writer." "Or a slow one. I wouldn't know the first thing about writing a novel." "It'll come along. A bevy for you." "Campari and soda." She began bustling behind the bar. "Of course." A deep male voice said something in Gaelic as he sat on the stool beside me. Mrs. Campbell smiled at him and nodded, returning in the same language. I expected to find a local sitting next to me. Who I did not expect to find was Alessandro Ricci. Madre di Dio! I flew off my stool and faced him warily, my muscles tight in readiness. "Che cazzo!" I barked. "What are you doing here?" Instead of standing, he pivoted on the stool to face me and propped his arm on the bar. In Italian, he continued, "The same as you, no? Buying a drink." Was he planning on killing me here, in this pub, in front of a witness? "I know who you are, Ricci." He appeared unsurprised. "I assumed. Otherwise you would not have disappeared from Santorini." "I also know why you are following me." Again, I assumed. Mrs. Campbell set 2 drinks on the bar. Ricci slipped over a large bill and spoke to her in Gaelic. Of course, the stronzo spoke Gaelic. I stood perfectly still, wondering if I could get past him to escape out the door. How the fuck had he found me? He was not a man who could blend in, especially here. Ricci was big and intimidating. Handsome. He would attract attention anywhere. Mrs. Campbell wandered away, leaving us alone. This was the moment. It was me or him. I took a threatening step in his direction. "Sit down," he said quietly. "I am not going to kill you right now." Right now. So he was toying with me, following me, sucking my dick, watching me. "I don't give a fuck what you want. We will finish this here." Sighing, Ricci reached behind his back and took a pistol out from the waistband of his jeans. He put it on the bar. "Is this what you wish? To die in this little shithole in the middle of nowhere?" "Fuck off!" "Sit." Ricci kicked my empty stool. "I promise you won't die today. The word of a man like you, one who is loyal only to whoever pays him, means nothing to me." Lifting the gun, he removed the magazine and slid the barrel to expel the bullet from the chamber. It all happened in a blink. He slapped all the pieces on the bar. "There. Now fucking sit." If he intended to shoot me dead, my blood would already be pooling on the floor. While I hated his cocky display, I had to respect it. Cautiously, I moved to the stool and sat. I snatched my cocktail and took 2 long swallows. The familiar flavor reminded me of home, and my throat tightened. "What do you want?" I snapped. He drank from his glass. "I had thought you would beg for your life." "I never beg." "Or reciprocate blowjobs, apparently." I didn't want to think about that night. I hadn't realized you wanted one. "You think I wouldn't like for you, the handsome heir to the biggest mafia empire in Europe, to give me a blowjob?" Madai. It didn't matter what he wanted. I wasn't next in line for the Ravazzani Empire any longer. I hadn't been for a long time. Too bad for you, then. He sipped his cocktail. "Yes, it is too bad for me." Now we were discussing blowjobs. "Who hired you to kill me?" "What sort of man would I be if I revealed my clients?" "I can offer you more than what they are paying you." "You assume this is about money." "Wasn't everything?" "It must be La Provincia. They want me dead because I'm gay and I left." This was the council of the 'Ndrangheta leaders. My father was a member, and while he swore the other dons weren't after me, I didn't believe it. Ricci said nothing, merely stared at the bar as he took another drink. I couldn't help but ask, "How long have you been on this island?" 4 days. Cristo. Watching me, I suppose. He snorted. Too fucking boring. Nothing but sheep and poetry. Of course he knew this. I was getting sloppy. I should have spotted him. He could have killed me at any time. Forgive me for boring you, Alessandro. Alessio. No one calls me Alessandro. I hadn't realized we were friends. You should hope so, Giulio. You do not want me as your enemy. Any man trying to kill me is automatically my enemy. It is a job, nothing more. You should understand that, considering all you've done for your father Sandrina. In a strange way, I did understand, but we were not the same, not even close. That was in the name of family, of brotherhood. You are in it for only one person, you. Yes, this is true, but I work better alone. The 'Ndrangheta is full of jackals, all trying to eat their young. We were talking about the Mafia now. What the fuck was happening here? I angled toward him, my muscles tight in readiness. While this existential conversation is riveting, I want to know how long you've been following me. Were you responsible for what happened in Belgium? I am not responsible for the death of your ragazzo. And I'm supposed to take your word for it. His top lip curled derisively. I don't use bombs. Too public, too messy. The work of an amateur. I actually believed him. Many people wish to kill you, it seems. Alessio continued. You are very popular, no? I let that go. Why haven't you killed me yet? Are you so eager to die? I clenched my jaw, anger at both him and myself flooding my veins. I left the 'Ndrangheta behind. They refuse to let me go because I am gay. Not everything is about your sexual preference. Cazzata! It's the only reason someone would hire you to kill me. You are more foolish than I thought, if you believe that. Was he implying another reason? If it's to strike at my father, they must not have heard he disowned me. This was the public story, the one Fausto spread to keep me safe. Alessio finished his drink and placed the empty glass on the bar. Anyone familiar with Ravazzani knows he would never let you go. Then they would be wrong. I gave up the right to his throne the minute I left Siderno. As you like to say, cazzata. He showed no emotion, his voice remaining flat and even, his face impassive. If there was a heart beating in his chest, I couldn't tell. Except for the night of the club. From his knees he had glanced up at me with such fire and longing it singed my skin. He'd been anything but cold and remote then. I didn't want to think about that night. Not now, not ever. It's true, whether you want to believe it or not, I snapped. We will see, no? I threw back the rest of my cocktail. I suppose we will. I stood and tossed more money on the bar. I'm walking out. Unless you plan on shooting me in a few seconds, know that I'm coming after you next, Ricci. A flicker of a smile flashed before he masked it. I look forward to it, il bel principe. Handsome prince. Clenching my fists, I hurried out into the cold Scottish wind.
Chapter 4. Alessio. Mrs. Campbell returned to clean up and offered me another drink, but I declined. I didn't often drink, and never excessively. The single cocktail was enough for now. I didn't move from the bar, staring at the rows of bottles on display. Giulio's reaction, anger and disbelief, had been expected. It was my own reaction to him that troubled me. It had taken almost 6 weeks to track Giulio here. In Santorini, he ditched his phone and identification, which made it more difficult to find him. He hadn't touched his bank accounts or his email. By pure luck, I learned a man fitting his description boarded a plane to Edinburgh. The flight attendant confirmed it, and from there it was easy. A man as good-looking as Giulio Ravazzani did not blend into the fair Highlands. I slapped the pieces of my gun together, so familiar with the procedure that my fingers moved automatically. I didn't like the heat in my belly, the way I couldn't stop thinking about his mouth, his hands. The night in Malaga he was rough with me, selfish and demanding. Exactly what I liked. But it shouldn't matter. I should have killed him by now. I lied about being bored while watching him. Nothing could be further from the truth. Giulio fascinated me, even while he was sitting still. He was pretty, like a magazine model, but there was strength and anger inside him. So much anger. I recognized it because I often felt that anger too. But he was bad luck for me. I could feel it in my bones. Giulio would be wary now, on guard at all times, but there was nowhere to go. The ferries ran sporadically and the island was isolated. I actually liked it here. But then I was used to being alone. Cana had to be torture for a man like Giulio, one who craved people and attention. He liked cities and crowds, parties and alcohol. Mrs. Campbell slid a glass of water over the bar. "Drink?" she told me in Gaelic. "You look thin and tired." I'd been staying in the apartment over the saloon ever since I arrived. The older woman had an air and attitude about her that I recognized as former military. I could spot them wherever I went. Not that I'd asked her about it, but I suspected her time in the service was the reason she was on this remote island in the middle of nowhere. To please her, I drank the water. "Happy?" I asked in Gaelic. "What do you want with that poor Mr. Dracos? He keeps to himself, never bothers anybody." "Only because there were no nightclubs here. Maybe I am his boyfriend." "That would explain why he is angry with you. Did you break his heart?" "Why do you assume I am in the wrong?" Leaning on the bar, she gestured to my face. "Because you don't let your feelings show. You're closed up, locked tight. Anyone who tried to love you would end up frustrated and angry." I didn't like that she read me so well. "Two men together. This doesn't bother you?" Mrs. Campbell rolled her eyes. "Ugh, I have a set of like this. I'm not ignorant of what goes on in the world. I've seen modern family." "What happened to Mr. Campbell?" "Divorced him 13 years ago and moved here. Last I heard, he was remarried and living in London." "Regrets?" "About my divorce." When I nodded, she straightened and began wiping down the bar. "Not about Hamish, no. We married young, and he wasn't a good husband." "But—" She considered this for a moment. "I wish I had kids when I had the chance. Now it's too late." It wasn't what I expected her to say, considering where she lived. The residents of Cana were loners, like me. In Gaelic, the Outer Hebrides were called Na Hensigal, which meant Islands of the Strangers. It sounded like a perfect place. My phone buzzed. I excused myself and went outside. It was Sasha. "Pronto." "Is it done yet?" I didn't answer, instead letting the silence speak for me. "Shishin I bet mia," a Russian expression that meant something similar to "life is fucking me." "Was there anything else, or did you call just to berate me?" "Do you know how much money you're losing? How many jobs I've passed up for you?" I hung up on her. Though Sasha was a great assistant, she was impatient. Some days it felt as if she cared more about my reputation than I did. She remembered every hit I had carried out, and she didn't understand my obsession with Giulio Ravazzani. Fair, as I hardly understood it myself, but I would not be rushed. I would complete the job on my terms when I decided it was time. He wasn't going anywhere, not from here. Shoving my phone into my pocket, I started walking away from town. Not a soul was around, no car or motorcycle in sight. The wind and the waves were the only sounds, with a chill that sank into your bones. The brisk temperatures didn't bother me in the least. I ran every morning on the western side of the island, up in the freezing hills. It cleared my mind and kept me sane. I headed toward the dock. If I knew Giulio, and I did, he would try to board the first ferry off the island, or he would bribe a fisherman to take him out on a boat. I had to prevent both. I didn't want him to get away. It took the better part of the day, but I found the 3 local fishermen and the ferry operator. With a flash of my pistol and some money, I had them agreeing to refuse any request from Nick Drakos. Unlike Giulio, I had no need to hide my identity here, so I let them know exactly what would happen to anyone who aided Mr. Drakos off the island. Satisfied, I headed back to my rooms. Giulio would be armed and waiting for me to show up at his farm, but I wasn't in the mood. I would deal with him another day. Maybe Mrs. Campbell would let me watch satellite TV with her over dinner. When I wasn't on a job, I spent most of my time training and exercising, keeping my skills sharpened. Excluding my run every morning in the mountains, I hadn't spent much time with my rifle. This would need to change. I would need to learn the wind patterns here. I already found the perfect vantage point to take out Giulio during my first day on the island, a spot on the outskirts of his farm that would allow me to kill him in a blink. So I needed to start practicing. The sun was starting to fade as I went up the stairs. I stopped outside my room. The single strand of hair I placed between the door and the door jamb was still in place, so I unlocked and went in. But as soon as I went in, I felt the change in the surrounding air. Something was off. Then the faint hint of weed and wool teased my nose. Giulio. On instinct, I swung my arm out and connected with solid muscle. A gun went off and I felt a burn across my left arm. Then he lunged at me, but I was ready. Though I normally avoided close combat, I remembered how it was done. I kept my arms close to my frame and used short, powerful strikes toward strategic places on his body. Unfortunately, Giulio was competent, and he blocked most of my attempts while returning a few of his own. Back and forth we punched and twisted, kicked and dodged. Furniture toppled over and a vase crashed to the floor. He'd been trained well by his father, but he was no match for me, a killer bred by the military. I was barely breathing hard, my heart rate not elevated in the least, and Giulio was panting, using too much energy to fight me. He was starting to tire, his blows not as sharp. It was only a matter of time. I landed a jab to his kidney and he stumbled backward. I advanced, sensing his weakness and moving in for the kill. There was no mercy inside me, no restraint. Calm settled inside me. I will finish this. He tried to dodge me, but I was faster. I had him by the throat and slammed him against the wall. My fingers tightened. Suddenly, a thumping sound broke through the noise in my head. Someone was pounding on the door. Woman, Gaelic words.
"Are you all right?" she called. "Young man, answer me."
I blinked as the roaring in my ears eased slightly. Mrs. Campbell.
"I'm fine,"
I called back in the same language.
"You owe me for that broken vase,"
she said.
"I know. I'm sorry."
Just then, Giulio used both hands to push my chest hard, shoving me off him. I let him go and dropped back a step.
"Get off me, stronzo!"
Giulio snarled and shouldered me out of the way. I rolled my neck and leaned my back against the wall, never taking my eyes off the Mafia prince. His brow was bleeding, the flesh split open from my knuckles. He was still the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. He was wary, his expression like a wild animal that had been cornered.
"How did you know I was here?"
Did he think I was stupid enough to give away my advantages? I kept quiet.
"Cazzo! You're like a robot or something,"
he grumbled, then winced and touched his side.
"If I start pissing blood, I am coming back and torching this entire building."
You would kill Mrs. Campbell. He made a noise in his throat, one of disbelief and surprise.
You think I care about that old lady?
She's not old, only 53, and she has done nothing to warrant dying.
Neither have I.
It didn't matter, not to me. You are an assignment, one I cannot refuse.
Why?
I said nothing. He wouldn't understand, nor would he care. The target never did. Their only concern was over their own miserable life.
You're bleeding,
he nodded toward my arm. I looked down and saw a tear in my coat, the red stain growing underneath. Pulling off my coat, I examined the wound. It was a scratch. You're not a very good shot. He folded his arms across his chest.
You sound disappointed, Alessio. Were you so keen on dying today?
To be killed by the Ravazzani heir, it is a privilege, no?
Stop calling me that,
he snarled through clenched teeth.
I told you I have nothing to do with my father any longer.
Your phone records say otherwise. His eyes widened. That this surprised him said a lot. Giulio had grown cocky in the years since Belgium, believing he was more clever than his enemies. He should have known better. We stared at one another, and I wondered what he would do now. He couldn't kill me, and he couldn't get off the island. Even if he did, there was no place on earth he could hide from me. I held the power over this man, not the other way around. His gaze traveled the length of my body, almost as if he was assessing me, just as he did that night in the club. I knew how I looked. A scarred face. Terrifying. Cold. But whatever Giulio saw across the crowded club had appealed to him. He'd chosen me, and I'd let him. Are you hoping for another blowjob? I asked softly. Because you'll be disappointed.
Va al d'inferno, testa di merda.
Go to hell, shithead.
As if I'd ever let you near my dick again.
Needing to prove a liar out of him, I licked my lips slowly. Cazzata. If I dropped to my knees, you'd whip it out.
Vaffanculo.
Brow pulled low, he stormed toward the door and yanked it open.
Stay away from me, Alessio, or next time I won't miss.
He slammed the door behind him, and I was left alone, the hint of a grin on my face.
Chapter 5. Giulio. I needed more weapons. In the early morning dawn, I stared at the supplies spread out on the dining room table. 3 old guns, 4 boxes of bullets, and a large hunting knife. It wasn't enough, not for taking out Ricci. After our encounter in his room yesterday, I tried to buy passage off the island. Except none of the fishermen would take me. They all waved me away with a fearful expression like I was cursed or something. Clearly, Alessio had threatened all of them to keep me trapped on Cana. I hardly slept last night, convinced Alessio would come after me in the dark. Yet he hadn't. The evening had passed quietly, with no sign of him anywhere. So today I arrived at the decision. While I was no longer a member of the 'Ndrangheta, I was still my father's son, a Ravazzani raised on blood and death. We were survivors, a line of kings born in the dry Siderno soil, which meant I would not sit around and wait for Alessio to shoot me. No more poetry, no more sheep. It was time to go on the offensive. Alessio thought he had me trapped. But the reverse was also true. If I couldn't find a way off this island, then neither could he, and only one of us would survive. To be killed by the Ravazzani heir, it is almost a privilege, no? Alessio would soon find out, because I would not die in the middle of nowhere, on this cold, remote island away from my family. I missed them. 4 years ago, I distanced myself from everyone in my old life to protect them, and since then I never stayed in one place long enough to make new friends. I rubbed my chest, wishing away the hollow feeling that was almost always there. It wasn't supposed to happen, like this. When I left the Mafia, I thought Paolo and I would live our best lives together with parties and friends, dinners and trips and marriage and maybe a kid or two. I never thought I would get him killed. I never thought I would live my life on the run in hiding. But I had no time for regrets. I would kill Ricci, return to Europe, and find Paolo's killers. Once they were dead, I could finally go to Siderno for more than just a day or two. I could visit my family, a real visit, for weeks, maybe a month. I fucking wanted that. No, I needed that. My last trip had been too short. Rafi turned 3 in March, and I'd gone home for the party. I hadn't stayed for barely 48 hours. I checked my watch. It was 5 o'clock here, but Siderno was an hour ahead. Should I call? No doubt she was sick with worry after not hearing from me for so long, and I knew she was already awake. There was another reason to call, a much darker reason. If Alessio got lucky and succeeded in killing me, I wanted to hear her voice just one more time. I grabbed one of the burner phones I'd purchased before coming to Canna. It was already charged, so I dialed quickly.
"Pronto?"
the raspy voice said. "Zia, it's me." My great-aunt, who was more like my nonna, gasped.
"Is it really you? Oh, Amato, they said—"
She didn't finish, her voice cracking, and guilt lodged like a bullet under my ribs. Ever since I could remember, she was the only one who ever called me little man. Swallowing the lump in my throat, I said, va bene, it's okay, I'm okay." She began reciting a prayer in Latin, so I waited for her to finish. Zia was very religious, a devout Catholic woman. I suspected she had to pray harder on account of being related to Fausto. When she quieted, I heard her blow her nose. "Don't cry," I said. "You'll ruin your makeup."
"Makeup?"
She made a dismissive noise.
"You know I never bother."
Yes, I knew. She said God made her this way, and why did she need to look like anyone else?
"Come stai?" "Worried. I worry every day over you. I prayed so hard. I knew you were not dead. I would feel it, no?"
"Perdonami, but I couldn't call. My phone wasn't safe."
"Your father, he has been beside himself with worry, too. When you disappeared, he nearly hopped on a plane for Greece."
Unsurprising, as Fausto was still watching my every move, or he had been until I went off the grid here in Canna. I'm glad someone stopped him.
"His wife reasoned with him, but he was very unhappy, very worried. This will ease his mind to learn that you are still alive."
I didn't want my father involved. He had 2 young children now, and Frankie was pregnant with a 3rd. It was better if he stayed in Siderno. I could handle one assassin, even if he was rumored to be the best. I would outsmart Alessio, beat him at his own game. I said, "You can't tell him, or Frankie for that matter. This has to stay between us, Zia." She didn't respond for a long time. Then she sighed.
"Why would you keep this a secret from the people who love you best, Amato?"
"It's not safe, and I don't want to put anyone there in danger." I decided to change the subject. "How are the babies? How is Frankie?" Zia launched into stories about my half-siblings, and I missed them all with a bone-deep ache. Raffaele was a mini Fausto, already demanding and difficult at 3 years old, just like the true future leader of the Endrina. At almost 2, Noemi was quieter, but no less energetic than her brother. "You must be exhausted," I told Zia. She grunted to express her displeasure.
They hire nannies. Too many nannies, I think. They don't want to bother me. But I'm not so old that I can't control that devil child. After all, I could control you." I smiled. I never truly inherited my father's temper or stubbornness. I took more after my mother, supposedly, who was killed when I was very young. That's true. I remember the time I was caught eavesdropping. When I was 9, Zia found me outside Fausto's office, listening to one of the Indrina meetings through the door. I was desperate to wrap my head around what it meant to be the Ravazzani heir. What did my father do all day? In these meetings, what did they discuss? What would be required of me when the time came? My aunt had grabbed me by the ear, made me confess to Fausto. Then I weeded her garden every day for a week, sun up to sundown. Seeing a weed still makes me twitch. "And you learned, no?" Zia asked. I learned I never wanted to garden. She chuckled. "You always hated the dirt." True. I glanced out the window. Light was shining on the horizon. "Zia, I should go. I have to go on a run." "You don't need to run. You're already too skinny." This was an old argument. She never understood my need to exercise. To stay alive, I need to stay in shape. "Then go, Amato. When will you call again?" "I don't know, but don't worry. I'll be fine." "I'll stop worrying when I'm dead, and it wouldn't hurt for you to step into a church every now and again," she chastised. I tried not to roll my eyes. The Catholic Church was less than progressive when it came to my community, so that was a hard pass. "I'll try, Zia. Ti voglio bene." "Ti voglio bene, Amato. Call soon, per favore." "I will. Ciao." Like ripping off a bandage, I disconnected quickly. Then I destroyed the burner phone. My chest churned with anger and regret. Whoever planted that car bomb in Belgium was going to suffer. They had destroyed my life, caused my family anguish and worry. But first, I had to deal with Ricci. Already dressed to run, I pulled on my knit hat and went outside. The wind tore through me, chilling me to my bones, and I cursed. I hated this God-forsaken place. As soon as I killed Alessio, I was on the first boat to Portugal. Then I would restart my search for whoever planted that bomb in Belgium. The cold ground crunched beneath my feet as I ran. The air punched into my lungs like needles, sharp bites of pain that stung. I headed toward the hills. My thighs burned as I charged up the incline. Madre di Dio, was I so out of shape? I focused on my breathing and continued climbing. I needed to clear my head and figure out what to do about Alessio. I still ached from our fight yesterday. His blows felt like hammers. For a split second, he'd almost won. When he shoved me against the wall with his hand on my throat, his eyes went flat and lifeless, looking more machine than man. There was no mercy, no kindness in him, and I knew he was about to strangle me there in that small apartment. For a split second I thought I was about to die, which only proved I didn't deserve to inherit Fausto's kingdom. I would never be strong enough, resilient enough, not like him. So it was good he had Raffaele. The boy would make a great Don one day. I shoved all those thoughts aside and kept running, pushing myself harder until there was no room in my head for anything except for my breath, my feet, the swing of my arms, the pounding of my heart. Minutes later, a noise behind me nearly caused me to trip. Looking over my shoulder, I saw Alessio jogging up the path. He wore a baseball cap and running clothes that looked older than he was.
Stopping, I bent over and put my hands on my knees, never taking my eyes off him as he closed the distance between us. Why was he up this fucking early? Was he exercising or following me? And why hadn't I brought a gun with me? Stupid, stupid, stupid. I clenched my jaw, grinding my back teeth, and considered my options. I could tackle him, except yesterday proved I couldn't take Alessio in a fight. My options were limited, but I wouldn't make it easy for the bastard. His lips twitched like he knew what I was thinking. I straightened as he drew closer, my body tired but ready to take him on, my hands closed into fists. Except he didn't break stride. "Andiamo, principe," he said as he passed me. "Let's go, prince." He didn't even sound out of breath, this stronzo. A wise man would probably go the other way, keep hiding, wait for the next attack. But I was tired of hiding and waiting. If we were running together, he couldn't take me by surprise. Better yet, an opportunity to kill him might present itself. A rock to the back of the head, maybe? I made a split decision. Turning up the path, I started after him.
Alessio. When I heard him follow, I slowed the tiniest bit. Giulio wasn't in terrible shape, but he couldn't keep up with me, not at my normal pace. I hadn't expected to find him out here. The hills were usually quiet this time of morning, with not a soul around. It was my favorite time of day, after the sun first peeked into the sky and I could be completely alone. No noise, no traffic, just me and the ground. "You're up early," I said when he was close enough. I knew his routine. He normally rose around 8 or 8:30. "Let me guess. You are always up at this time." "It is the best part of the day, no?" "Oh, sure. The rest of your day must be stressful with all the stocking you need to squeeze in." He sounded so cranky that I nearly smiled. He was not a morning person. In fact, I learned instantly when I started tracking him. Hard to visit nightclubs for anonymous blowjobs and rise early the next day. We continued to run, neither of us speaking. I preferred the silence, though I was keenly aware of his presence, of his exhales and heavy steps. He was pretty, even with the dark circles under his eyes. His fashionable running outfit was impractical for this weather, but he was still gorgeous. Maybe more so because he was flushed and sweaty, and it reminded me of sex. Specifically of what Giulio would look like during sex. I knew what he looked like when he came, when the hard edges and anger disappeared, leaving just sensation and bliss. Madre de Dio. I still thought of his face mid-orgasm when I jerked off. Did he ever think of me on my knees, my mouth around his cock? Idiota. Of course not. Giulio had been with plenty of men, so why would I stand out? I'd only been with a dozen or so men in my lifetime, and never openly. Each encounter hurried, frantic, unsatisfying. He wheezed beside me. I took pity on him and slowed to a stop, trying not to laugh as he collapsed onto a rock. "You need to breathe from your fuck off," he panted. I held up my palms and stretched my muscles to keep them warm. This wasn't yet halfway for me, and there was a long way to go. "You can turn back if you like. No one is forcing you to stay." "Are you not even breathing hard?" He squinted up at me. "Are you human?" The words nicked an old wound, one that was never quite healed. "He's not normal," my father used to shout in his drunken rambles. "What is wrong with that boy?" I'd been a disappointment to him, a man who wished for a loud and boisterous son, someone more like himself. Instead, I was quiet and awkward, more inside my head than not. I could sit for long stretches of time and do nothing, which was what made me the best sniper in the world, but a terrible son. "I am human," I told Giulio. just in better shape than you." He mumbled a string of Italian curses and wiped his face with the sleeve of his shirt. I was suddenly curious about his former life in Siderno. "Your father, he doesn't force his men to stay in shape." "It's not the military, Alessio." "Too bad. With proper training, he might have eluded me. As it was, he left breadcrumbs in his wake everywhere he went. Giulio was like a brilliant sky full of color and life. He was impossible to miss." He eyed me suspiciously. "Do you have a gun on you?" I held out my arms. "No, I don't. Other than puffins and eagles, there isn't anything around at this time of day." I paused mid-stretch. "But I don't need a gun to kill you, Giulio." It was a fact. His neck still bore faint bruises from my fingers. "I'm not as weak as you think," he said. "I don't think you are weak. Far from it. The 'Ndrangheta didn't raise weak men, and Ravazzani would have ensured his heir was strong enough to take over when the time came. But I was a killer, a soulless monster, trained to take down an enemy quickly and quietly. He was no match for me." I suddenly had a lot of questions rolling around in my head. "What is your favorite way to kill a man?" He frowned, his eyebrows lowering. "Ma dai, what the fuck kind of a question is that?" I lifted a shoulder and concentrated on the ground as I stretched. "It is the one thing we have in common, no? This and an intimate knowledge of Giulio's dick." "Except I'm not an assassin," I snorted, unable to hold it in. "Cazzata. You were your father's soldato. You carried out murders." "I didn't do much wet work." "Much," I repeated. "But you did some. So tell me, what is your favorite way to kill?" "Why the fuck do you want to know? Wondering how I will kill you?" As if he could. But it was clear he found offense in my question, so I wouldn't push it. If he could not see who he really was, the man underneath the designer clothes and good looks, then who was I to point it out? I motioned with my hand. "Andiamo. Break's over." His lips flattened, wariness and unhappiness etched on his handsome face. "How much farther?" "We are not yet halfway." He glared at me, and I could see his indecision. For some reason, I wanted him to stick it out. "Come, you can keep up." "Fuck off, Alessio," he grumbled as he stood. "I'm only doing this to get stronger so I can kill you." "Va bene, uccisori. Let's go." Giulio clearly didn't like being called a killer, but he followed when I set off again, his footfalls crunching behind mine. We ran for several minutes before he spoke. "What is your favorite way to kill?" The truth escaped before I could stop it. "With my hands." I grimaced and tried not to think about how crazy that made me sound. It was why I preferred my rifle. The gun was cold and unsatisfying, leaving a distance between me and the victim that made it easier to justify, easier to carry out, easier to keep my demons at bay. Killing with my hands was a rush unlike anything else. Intimate, personal. A challenge that felt elemental, more animalistic than human. In the moment I felt nothing other than the desperate need to survive over my opponent. And when I succeeded, I felt exhilarated. "He's not normal." "Si, certo." I touched the cornicello on the chain around my neck and kept running. Giulio mumbled something behind me. I glanced over my shoulder. "Che cosa?" "I said mine is a knife." Ah, he was finally playing along. "Your father's as well, no?" Fausto's preference for a knife was legendary. It had earned him the nickname Il Diavolo. "I've never asked him, but I assume so." "It is too messy for me. The blood, I mean." "That is the point," Giulio said. "To make a show, to intimidate, not to mention cause pain." "No, that is killing to impress others. It is why you mafioso get caught, because you need to measure your dicks. Make sure everyone knows how important, how dangerous you are. It is necessary to instill fear, so that others recognize the danger of crossing you,
to make people do what you want. It's the only reason to murder, outside of self-defense. I shook my head. Murder needs no reason. Sometimes it just needs to be done. Is that how you justify carrying out your assassinations? Is that how you sleep at night? Irritation swept along my spine like the claws of a cat, and I smothered the urge to lash out. I didn't sleep at night, actually. 3 or 4 hours max. Still, I needed no justification for who I was and what I did. I was a ghost. My targets never saw me coming. A single bullet to the forehead, and I was in the wind. "What is your rate, by the way?" Giulio asked from behind me. "What does the best assassin in Europe charge?" "Depends on who's asking. Let's say it's me. You can't afford me." "Fuck off," he snapped. "This is hypothetical because the only person I want dead is you." Fine, I would play along. "Who am I to kill?" "A world leader. Pick one." "I can't. The identity matters. Some are easier to get to than others." "Who would be the most difficult?" "Chinese. Russian. Not impossible, but difficult." The path widened, so I slowed a fraction to allow him to catch up. When we were side by side, he asked, "So, what would you charge to assassinate the Russian president?" "Off the top of my head, 10 million. He whistled. "What about another Mafia leader? One of the other Dons?" I knew how much I received for Fausto's assassination, money I had returned to Don D'Agostino. 1 million, depending on who. "What if it was Enzo D'Agostino?" I looked over at him sharply. Had he read my mind? "Because he is your father's enemy," he grunted in answer. "I'll never forgive D'Agostino for trying to kill Fausto." Except it hadn't been D'Agostino looking through the sight on the rifle, squeezing the trigger to take the shot. What would Giulio say if he knew I had almost assassinated his father? I couldn't think about that now. I had no intention of ever telling him. "So tell me," Giulio said, "how much for D'Agostino?" This was not a line of questioning I wanted to entertain. Soon he would ask if I knew who D'Agostino hired to shoot at Fausto from that rooftop. "He's well fortified in Napoli, from what I understand," I hedged. "More than the Russian president?" He looked at me through his lashes, and the impact of his eyes was like a fist to the chest. I nearly tripped. Sweat dripped off the sharp lines of his jaw, and I had the wildest urge to lick the sweat from his skin. Cazzo, this had to stop. I didn't wish to discuss assassinations and money and Mafia dons. He was my target. I didn't want to grow close to him. Yet I couldn't stay away. In other words, I was fucked. Admit it. You just don't want to kill Giulio. I didn't like that voice in my head. This was a job, just like any other. Yes, it was taking longer than usual, but I would do what needed to be done when the time came. "Hurry up," I muttered, and picked up the pace, not caring if he kept up or not.
Chapter 6. Giulio.
Alessio was a moody motherfucker. After I asked about how much he charged to kill someone, he shut down and practically sprinted along the path. I couldn't keep up, and his tall form soon disappeared into the twists and turns of the hill. Slowing, I jogged at my own pace again. Was he planning to jump me? I tensed around every bend, my eyes scanning the landscape, but he wasn't there. His shoeprints were steady and straight, headed down the other side of the mountain toward flat ground. I didn't understand him at all. I'm not supposed to understand him. He's here to kill me. Well, I wouldn't make it easy. I was tired of running, both literally and figuratively. Drawing to a stop, I bent over and put my hands on my knees, sucking in great gulps of air. My thighs felt like noodles. Thank God I quit smoking cigarettes at Paolo's insistence. Vaping weed was bad enough on my lungs, not that I ever planned to give that up.
Some nights it was the only way to catch a decent sleep. I walked to the bottom of the hill. Alessio was long gone, not even a speck in the distance. I scanned the surroundings. Was he out there with his rifle, hiding and waiting? Somehow I didn't think so. Heading toward the farm, I considered this. What would I do in Alessio's shoes? The ferries on and off the island ran 3 times a week, and the next one was soon. If Alessio was smart, his plan would be to kill me, then immediately board the ferry and disappear. It made perfect sense. So I had to strike at him first. Once at the farmhouse, I showered and dressed. Then I ate breakfast and examined the guns I'd found in the house. They were older, unused for some time. I'd used one in my failed attempt at killing Alessio last night. Had I missed because my aim was rusty, or was the gun faulty? I needed to find out. I bundled up with layers upon layers of clothing, then watched the perimeter of the farm, looking for signs that someone else was out there. From what I could see, it was all clear. I loaded one of the guns just to be safe before heading outside into the cold. Madre de Dio, this weather. My Mediterranean soul wept. I kept walking until I found a tree stump. I rested 3 empty bottles on top and moved back. Then I took aim at the bottles. Figlio d'un cane, I only hit 1 out of 3. I grabbed a different pistol, loaded it, and tried to shoot, but this one jammed. I tossed it aside. The last pistol was older and heavier, like ones from those old Clint Eastwood movies. I liked the weight of it in my palm. I shot 4 times, but only hit 1 of the remaining bottles. Minchia! You need to brace your legs. The deep voice startled me, and I whirled to find Alessio, leaning against the sheep pen, his grey eyes watching me. He wore a knit cap, jeans, and a hoodie with an apple in one hand and a knife in the other. It was no kitchen knife, though. It was more like a hunting knife, one used for skinning, not chopping. Alessio cut off a chunk of apple without looking down, then popped the slice in his mouth. I brought the gun up and pointed it at him. Ma che cazzo fai? I'm out for a walk. You're stalking me. He lifted a shoulder. If that's what you prefer to call it. You don't seem worried that I will shoot you in a few seconds. You couldn't hit the bottles from 10 feet away. Do you really plan to hit me from all the way over there? Are you willing to take that chance? His gaze raked me from head to toe. Though I wore mounds of clothing, I felt exposed, like he could see the bare skin underneath. The lines bracketing his mouth deepened. If you shoot, I will hurl this knife into your throat. He flipped the large knife in his hand a few times without breaking our stare, and I promise I won't miss. I hated him so much. I lowered the gun slowly, but didn't take my finger off the trigger. Figlio di puttana! This only seemed to amuse him. You know, for a Mafia prince, you're not very smart. My fist tightened around the handle of the gun. Fuck, it would be so satisfying to shoot him. What does that mean? It means you haven't thought this out. Let's say that by some stroke of luck you are able to kill me and leave this island. What then? You want to know where I'm going next, is that it? You have some bad men after you, Giulio. If I don't kill you, they will. They haven't succeeded in 4 years. He threw his head back and laughed. Cazzo, you are full of yourself. Do you want to get shot again? I snapped. He sobered and a muscle jumped in his jaw. Here is my advice. Stop being childish. You're a grown man, so start dealing with your problems instead of running and hiding. Anger sparked in my veins, bright and hot. Judgmental prick.
He had no fucking idea what I'd been doing the last 4 years, how hard I'd worked to find Paolo's killers. Is this where you tell the gay man he's too effeminate, too weak? He shook his head and heaved a sigh. I am bisexual, Giulio. I like men and I like women. For the last time, this has nothing to do with your sexuality. My jaw fell open. Alessio was bi? Well, that explained the exemplary blowjob in Malaga. I didn't ask for your advice, and I plan to find and kill them next. After you kill me, you mean? He gave me a half-smile, and I was shocked to see a dimple in his right cheek. Alessio did not seem the sort of man to have dimples. Paolo had dimples. Yes, I growled, after I kill you. Then you had better keep practicing. He pointed at the 2 remaining bottles on his stump. It's the guns, not my aim. It's both. You don't know how to handle those old weapons, especially in this wind. And you do. Si, certo. Cazzata. He might be good with a long-range rifle, but these were old handguns. Who knew the last time they'd been cleaned and oiled? I'll take your word for it. Would you like for me to show you? And give you a weapon to shoot me with, ma sei pazzo? Then, perhaps, for the sake of the sheep, we call a temporary truce. A truce? Was he serious? Why the fuck would I do that? You need my help. This was unbelievable. My lip curled into a sneer. Are you really an assassin? Because all you do is talk and follow me. The knife whizzed toward me in a blink. The blade sank into the ground a millimeter from my big toe. I hadn't seen the weapon even leave his hand. I looked back up at him. He was watching me coolly, his expression unreadable. It was clear he could have killed me, but he hadn't. This was becoming a theme between us. There had been ample opportunity for him to take me out, not only here but elsewhere. Why was he toying with me? Did he get off on the power? Fuck this. I was not some weak, inexperienced politician or a delusional world leader surrounded by sycophants. I was raised to kill and hurt people, to make others bend to my will. This assassin would not make a fool of me. Bending, I removed the knife from the cold ground. I balanced it in my palm, learning the weight of it. With a flick, I sent it flying toward him, but aimed a bit higher, directly at his crotch. He moved aside just before impact. With a thump, the tip of the knife embedded in the wooden sheep pen, right where his dick would have been. It would be a shame if you cut it off before you had a chance to see it, he said, smoothly removing the blade from the wood. I don't want anything to do with your dick, Alessio. He pushed off from the wood. With slow, measured steps he came toward me. Too bad. It's a very nice dick. I braced my legs. If he wanted a fight, then I'd happily give him one. The pistol in my hand still had 2 bullets left. I settled the piece deeper in my palm and cocked the hammer. The air grew thinner as he drew closer. I could barely hear the sheep over the pounding of my heart. He stopped just out of reach and tipped his chin toward my hand. That is a 44 Magnum Colt Anaconda double-action revolver with an 8-inch barrel, produced in 1990 in America, in Connecticut. The originals aren't easy to find anymore. It's heavy, a hunter's gun. When he paused, I asked, Are you trying to impress me? No, I'm trying to tell you why you are missing. The early versions had an accuracy problem which could explain it. Also, until you're used to it, the double action could give you trouble. He shrugged. Or you might just be a terrible shot. Testa di cazzo.
Raising my arm, I took aim once more. Alessio told me to widen my legs even more, so I did and used both hands to steady the gun. The bullet exploded. So did the target. Then I lined up and shot again. Boom! The second target disappeared. I expected him to gloat, but when I looked over, I found him wearing an odd expression, one reminiscent of how he'd stared up at me that night in Malaga. It stirred something inside me, and I couldn't help but remember Alessio on his knees, the bass rattling in my chest as he took me out of my jeans, the grip of his wet, hot mouth, holding my gaze as he swallowed my cum. Heat rolled through me, a dark craving to have that all just once more. Disgust quickly followed. What the fuck was wrong with me? You look good with that gun in your hand, Principe. His voice was deep. A caress I felt all the way in my toes. I shoved the confusion over my feelings aside. If he wasn't going to kill me, then there wasn't any reason for him to be standing here. Get off my property, assassino! The scar on his cheek twisted as he frowned. He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it. Good, because I didn't want to hear whatever he had to say. Silent, he walked past me, continued toward the farmhouse and the path that led to town. His movements were fluid and graceful, but economical. The military training was evident in everything he did. I didn't budge. Instead, I watched as his frame grew smaller and smaller. Finally, he disappeared down the path. Then I picked up the guns and went back inside. I had to figure out what to do next.
Alessio. I should have known he would be waiting. When I started up the trail for my run the next morning, I found Giulio leaning against a rock, his arms folded across his chest. I frowned, but didn't stop. His steps began dogging mine. I didn't say anything, merely pushed harder. I would lose him in the hills. Sasha had 2 jobs lined up. The first was next week in Toronto, then another the week after in Sao Paulo. That meant I had to deal with Giulio before the ferry in 2 days' time. Once he was dead, I would fly from Edinburgh to London to Canada, changing identities each flight. My time in Canada was over. Finally, I could get back to normal. I'd allowed myself to want and feel when it came to this man. It had become an obsession. It broke every rule I'd established for myself, yet I hadn't been able to prevent it. Ever since I first saw him on that Siderno street, smiling at his father and stepmother, I hadn't been able to think clearly. And terrible luck had followed. Bad mood today, assassino. It was closer than I expected. How was he keeping up? I said nothing, just kept running. I've been waiting on you for 30 minutes, he continued. I started to think you were sleeping in. Not I. I never slept in, not since I'd lived with my nonna. He kept talking. But maybe you're trying to avoid me, which would make killing me difficult, no? I gritted my back teeth until the pain in my jaw distracted me from my irritation. All my life I'd hidden my feelings, my intentions. This one man saw too much, got under my skin, and I had allowed it, like a fool. I glanced over my shoulder. Today's your last day on Earth. Strange that you would waste debating me into an argument. Do you want to know what I think? No, I absolutely did not. The cold stung my lungs as I climbed, my legs burning. I needed this. I needed to punish my body, work myself until exhaustion. I think you don't want to kill me. I think you... In a flash, I spun around. Then I grabbed him and slammed his back into a rock. I braced an arm across his throat and leaned in. You have no idea what I want.
Don't I?" There were no signs of fear in his expression, the bastard. He stared at me with a challenging glint in his eye, his lips curled into a knowing smirk. I shoved harder into his windpipe. "Why would I not kill you? Enlighten me, Principe." "You like watching me? You like thinking about what we did in Malaga?" My lungs constricted. It felt like the air was in short supply, even though we were outside with nothing around but grass and dirt and the ocean breeze. I could hear my heart beat in my ears, the rush of blood thrumming in my veins. I attempted a sneer. "Malaga doesn't matter. Nothing about you matters to me. So why am I still alive? Maybe I'm taking my time. You can't escape. What's the rush?" His stare was unwavering. "You won't murder me." "I will. But don't worry. You won't see it coming. And it will be painless." A hand fell onto my waist. I sucked in a sharp breath. Giulio was touching me. His rough grip rested on my hip bone like it had the right to be there. Tiny shocks raced over my skin and my groin tightened with need. I could feel the heat from his body, even under the heavy clothing. It was both not enough and too much. I wanted to touch him so badly. I shook with it. But I didn't trust myself. I released him as if he were a live grenade. He didn't move, his body pressed against the rock. "If you're going to kill me, you would have already done it." Delaying the inevitable. Pushing off the stone, he started toward me. There was no fear, no hesitation. Confidence radiated off every part of him, his muscles loose and relaxed. The exact opposite of me at the moment. "Cazzata. If my life has taught me anything," he said, "there is no such thing as inevitable." I said nothing. He was wrong. Me tracking him down was inevitable. His death was inevitable. He moved around me and sprinted up the trail, his shoes crunching on the frozen ground. I followed him. We started out with a light jog to warm up as we headed toward the hills. The air was cold, the path hard. I focused on my feet, my breath, the surroundings, anything but the man in front of me. 10 minutes passed before he spoke. "So are you a top or a bottom? You know, with men." I knew what he was trying to do. I frowned at his broad back. "Why is it always sex with you?" "Just making conversation, assassino. I'm curious about the man who wants to kill me." Was he trying to soften me up in the hopes that I wouldn't carry out the hit, make us relate on a human level? It was a tactic captives used with their captors, and it wouldn't work. "You're wasting your time." "Does that mean you won't answer?" "No. It means I know what you are doing. Also, I don't like labels." "Well, I hate to tell you, but the B in LGBTQIA+ means bi. You are a label." I supposed. But I didn't try to analyze my sexuality or think about what it meant. I slept with whomever I wanted to at the moment, whoever I was attracted to. And I happened to find both men and women attractive. I hadn't understood it for a long time, especially when I was younger. In the military, a fellow soldier tried to convince me I was gay and covered it up by occasionally sleeping with women. But pussy got my dick hard just as much as cock. Giulio wasn't letting it drop. "Maybe you're a switch. Are these things gay men really discuss?" "Yes. I like to fuck and be fucked. Does that help?" His feet stumbled slightly before he righted himself. I smothered a satisfied grin. He wasn't as immune to me as he pretended. Did he often think about that night in Malaga, too? We didn't speak for a long time, our feet climbing higher on the path, his breath growing labored. I liked watching his muscles shift under his clothing as he ran, the way the sweat gathered between his shoulder blades. This view made up for the slow pace. "When did you know you were bi?"
he panted. I sighed. He had a one-track mind, apparently. Around 9 or 10, I suppose. My nonna watched a lot of football. I didn't care much about the ball. I was fascinated by the players. Was it hard, in the military, to find men to sleep with? I chuckled. No, not at all. It was easy. But it had to be quick. He didn't say anything more. Was he thinking about his upbringing, his lover who had been killed in Belgium? I found myself curious about him. And you? When did you know? Always. How did you hide it from your father? Looking back, I can't believe Fausto didn't figure it out. I had posters of Gianluigi Buffon all over my bedroom walls. My eyebrows lifted. Buffon and I were the same height and similar features, both with dark hair. Had Giulio recognized the resemblance? A fantastic goalkeeper. I was obsessed with him. Never even considered a woman in the same way. Have you ever slept with a woman? No, never. Paolo and I found each other when I was 16. He was my first. You must miss him. He shrugged as if to say, what can you do? Yes, but I've had a long time to come to terms with the guilt. I had no idea someone would try to kill me. I thought I was free from all of that. That we would be safe. How could he have been so naive? Your father has made many enemies. This isn't about my father. I'm the embarrassment, the gay man who left after pledging my life to them. They can't let me go. I had no idea who was responsible for the car bomb, but I seriously doubted it was the 'Ndrangheta. What does your father say? That the man responsible is dead. But I can't take that chance until I know for certain. Car bombs haven't been used since the Camorra or the Cosa Nostra in the 80s. I don't think it's the 'Ndrangheta. Then who was it? You're an assassin. Who still uses car bombs? A few groups, factions of Al-Qaeda and ISIS, the PKK, Russians, none that would care about you. So, you think it was, what, coincidence? His voice rose in anger. I've seen the CCTV footage leading up to the blast. There was no hesitation which car was their target. This surprised me, though it shouldn't have. You've been investigating the bombing. Si, certo. Did you think I have been sitting on my ass for 4 years? I thought you were trafficking cocaine, I said dryly. He came to an abrupt halt, his sneakers skidding on the cold ground. Whipping around, he pinned me with narrowed eyes. You were following me. In Malaga. Were you under the impression I first found you in that club? Ma dai, Giulio. He didn't say anything, so I continued. €1 million in one day. I whistled. Nice. He put his hands on his hips and mumbled something. Cosa? I said I can undercut the existing suppliers because it's just me. I have no overhead. Smart of you. Does your father know what you're doing? Of course not. Because you're worried he'll try to take over. Giulio looked at me as if I had 2 heads. Because he would worry about my safety. Cristo, Alessio. I held up my hands in apology. Aren't you worried about your safety? I'm on a remote Scottish island, jogging with a man hired to kill me. I think we both know the answer to that question. Turning, he started up the path again. I found myself following once more.
Chapter 7. Giulio. I studied the hills as I ran, my head swimming. It wasn't from lack of air, though. No, the more I interacted with Alessio, the more confused I became. My hand tingled as if I could still feel his body under my palm. Last night I decided to use his attraction for me as a weapon. I would push him, bait him, and cause him to drop his guard. Then I could either kill him or convince him to drop the hit. I hadn't expected to feel something in return. I like to fuck and be fucked. Cazzo, madre di Dio. Those words. Now I was picturing it, his long, strong body underneath me, straining and trembling as he let me inside. Was he quiet when being fucked? Alessio didn't strike me as a moaner. I hadn't been with another man like that since Paolo, and I should be ashamed that I was thinking about it even briefly with Alessio. Was I so broken, so twisted after the last 4 years that I'd stoop so low? And yet, if it kept me alive, who cared? Alessio wanted me, so I needed to use that against him. Whatever I felt was immaterial. Keep him talking, keep him focused on me, get inside his head. I used to be charming and easy to talk to, at least that was what people said back in Salerno. It couldn't be difficult, and there was no way to kill him. I already tried that and failed. His skills were sharper than mine, his aim more deadly. I had to get creative in order to remain breathing. I needed to use my brains to beat him. I cast a quick glance over my shoulder. Alessio's head was down as he ran, but I knew he was paying close attention to me. "You said killing me was an assignment you couldn't refuse. Why?"
"Have you been getting high already this morning? You asked me this once before."
"And I never received an answer."
"Because I don't owe you one."
"Fine, I'd try another topic. Why do you like Mrs. Campbell so much?"
"She reminds me of my nonna."
I latched onto this glimpse of his personal life. "The one who liked football?"
"Yes."
"What does your family think of your profession?"
"They're dead."
My mother died when I was young, murdered on a beach by my father's enemies. I doubted this was the case with Alessio's family, though. "Illness?"
"My father left when I was 6. My mother gave me away when I was 8. I never saw either of them again. Both are dead to me."
My jaw fell open. 8. Dio santo. I couldn't help but feel pity. No child should be given away or abandoned by a parent. "You went to live with your nonna?"
"Si, she died almost 10 years ago."
"She must have been proud of you."
"She framed my medals and hung them on her walls."
Medals, plural. I suppose you were well decorated.
"The military appreciates those who kill with efficiency. I am a very efficient killer."
"Am, not was." I said, "The Mafia also appreciates an efficient killer."
"It's much the same, killing in service of another. But when I left the Bersagliere, I decided any killing would benefit only myself."
"Which is why you're the most sought-after assassin in Europe." He didn't answer. We both knew it was the truth. We were nearing the top, with the entire island visible from this vantage point. Ocean waves rippled in the distance as far as one could see. Alessio's steps grew louder. Suddenly he brushed by me, overtaking the lead. "Was I boring you, assassino?"
"No, but you are slowing me down."
His powerful leg muscles popped and shifted beneath his running pants. I let myself enjoy the sight as he increased our pace. "If you don't kill me, what happens?"
He shook his head. "Let it go, Principe."
"Why? It's not like I need to worry that I'll piss you off, and I'm genuinely curious."
"The people who order these things are generally not forgiving people."
"How do I know unless you give me a name? Maybe it's the Pope." A deep chuckle floated between us.
"You have a high opinion of yourself."
We started down the other side of the hill. This required more concentration to guard against slipping and falling on my ass. For a tall man, Alessio moved like a damn mountain goat. He was pulling away, but I needed to keep him close. "So, the men, the car bomb," I called out.
How would you find them?" He slowed a bit. "What did the Belgian police say?" "Nothing. No clues, no leads." "There had to be something in their reports." "How do you know I've seen them?" "If you accessed the CCTV footage, then you were paying either a hacker or someone on the police force. You would have made certain to get the reports as well." He was right. I had paid off a police officer. Bomb was a standard explosive device, 500 grams of TNT, placed under the car on the driver's side, detonated remotely. Easier than wiring it to the ignition. "Where were you?" "Across the street. We were leaving a club and Paolo took my keys because I had too many drinks. He was going to come around and pick me up." "So they knew it was Paolo behind the wheel?" "My guess is they saw us come out of the club, left, and detonated it a few minutes later." "How do you know your ragazzo wasn't the target?" "It was my car," I said. "And Paolo wasn't supposed to join me that night. He surprised me when he got off early from his shift. The bomb was put in place almost as soon as I went inside." "Who planted it?" "Two men, average build. They wore hats and dark jackets." Alessio thought about this for a few moments. "A professional would have cut the CCTV before wiring a car like that. Any of your father's business dealings go south about that time? Low-level associates, I mean." "I told you this isn't about your father," he finished. "Yes, I know. Humor me." I thought about Enzo D'Agostino, but he was hardly low-level, and a car bomb was definitely not his style. He'd hired an assassin to take my father out in broad daylight. Not that I know of. What does that mean? I steadied myself on a rock when my feet slid. That you're not thinking hard enough when it comes to your father's enemies. "I already told you," I snapped. "There's no one." "Cazzata! If you weren't about to die, I would tell you to dig into the Ravazzani Empire. It should be easy for you, considering..." "Considering what? I'm no longer in it." "You are Il Bel Principe. You'll never be anything else." Alessio didn't understand. I wasn't that man any longer, and I didn't have access to such information. "You make it sound so easy." He disappeared around a bend, but I heard him say, "That's because you're making it hard." I blew out a frustrated breath as I took the corner after him. "What would you do?" "You mean, what would I do if someone was trying to kill me?" "Yes." "It's hardly the same, and the car bombers are not the only ones trying to kill you." "Let's forget about you for a moment." "As if you could," he threw back, sounding offended. "I'm serious. Someone is after you. What do you do?" "I don't know. I've only been on the other side of it, and most of what I do is research. I learn everything I can about my target." I gaped at his back. "This is why you were stalking me in Malaga and Santorini?" "Yes." I blurted. "What did you learn?" "Principe." He drew to a halt and shoved his sweaty hair out of his face. I stopped, rested my hands on my knees, and sucked in air. "I want to know, what did you learn about me?" "Why? So you can try to change your patterns when I need to kill you?" "Would that even work?" "No, so why do you want to know?" I couldn't explain it, but I needed to know. I was curious what he'd learned in those months observing me. I lived a lie for so long. Being an openly gay man had only lasted a short time before I was forced to go on the run. All I knew was hiding, pretending to be someone else, keeping my true self a secret to stay alive. What could this stranger possibly have discovered? "Humor me, Alessio." He folded his arms across his chest and braced his feet, like he was readying himself to report to his superior in the army. "You like people and crowds. You thrive off the energy in a city. I've never seen you drive, but I assume you like speed, so you probably drive an expensive sports car. You vape weed whenever you are feeling down and missing your friends and family, especially Frankie. You want to break free of your father's control, but you also miss him. You're slightly jealous of his new children, though you tell yourself it's for the best that he has another son who can assume the Ravazzani legacy." He drew in a deep breath and kept going, his voice staccato, like reading a list in his head. "You eat healthy and exercise every day. You rise around 8 or 8:30 and surf gay porn on your phone, usually DS videos, probably because you prefer being a top. Then you jerk off in bed, easy as you sleep naked. Once you come, you clean up quickly, almost like you're embarrassed. I suspect Roman Catholic guilt." He raised one eyebrow. "Should I go on?" I nodded once, unable to form a single word. I was both fascinated and horrified, but I was also growing aroused, which made no sense whatsoever. He had scrutinized my life, and I shouldn't be getting erect, yet I was thickening in my pants. He kept going. "Then you work out in a pair of briefs. Your female neighbors try not to watch, but can't help themselves, and who could blame them? The lunges and push-ups, madre de Dio, you could sell tickets and make a fortune. Anyway, once you finish and shower, you shop for the day's meals. You might make a mushroom risotto or frittata. You like stone fruits as dessert, though you treat yourself to pistachio gelato every now and then. In the afternoon, you watch a streaming show on your tablet. The most recent season of Gomorrah made you laugh and roll your eyes." When he paused, I said, "What else?" "We already talked about the coke, which just leaves the nightclubs." I leaned slightly forward, dying to hear the rest. After all, our first encounter had been in a nightclub. "What about the nightclubs?" The skin of his neck turned a dull red, and I realized he was embarrassed. Cazzo, he was adorable. This big, scarred assassin was capable of embarrassment. "Dimmi, assassino," I ordered. "You go late, after it's crowded. You wear jeans and a tight T-shirt, and you wait for someone to approach you, never the other way around. You want someone eager, and you don't much care what he looks like. You lead him to a dark corner and never kiss on the mouth. Instead, you tell him exactly what you want, and no one ever refuses. They get down on their knees and suck your cock until you come. You never thank them or reciprocate, and you can't get away fast enough." When Alessio finally fell silent, I couldn't speak. It was all true. Every word. He knew me, some ways better than I knew myself. Alessio was smart, smarter than I'd given him credit for, and he'd been following me a long time, watching me, learning me. How many men had he seen me with at the clubs? There had been a few in Malaga, 2 in Greece, but none of those blowjobs had been as good as Alessio's. Lust was suddenly a tight fist in my belly, undeniable and urgent. He didn't look away, just continued to watch me with his cool gunmetal gaze. He thought he had me all figured out. So, did he know the thoughts currently running through my head? I doubted it. Because right now I was angry and turned on. I wanted to both punish him and make him writhe and moan. My body was hyper-aware of him, of me. I noted every rise and fall of his chest, the way his lips parted slightly,
the ruffle of his hair in the breeze. I was buzzing, my skin crawling with heat and need, and I was remembering Malaga. I hated us both for it. Stepping closer, I moved in until only a few centimeters separated us. Our chests were almost touching, and I could feel the heat coming off his big frame. I pitched my voice low and soft. "You're wrong, Alessio. It very much mattered to me that night. I wanted it to be you, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since." I heard his quick intake of breath. I kept talking, curious to see how far this would go. "When you waited to swallow my cum, that was the hottest thing I've ever seen." He licked his lips, but said nothing. My pulse pounded in every part of my body. He was so close I could count his eyelashes. I catalogued each whisker he'd yet to shave off and dragged my gaze over the jagged edges of his scar. The air between us turned heavy with expectation, like we were both waiting for the other to do something. Silence stretched. I couldn't tell what he was thinking, so I decided to push him even further. "Would you like to suck my cock again, Alessio?" The words were less a question and more an invitation. There was no way he missed it either. I could see the indecision, the tension inside him as he contemplated it. Pupils blown with lust, he curled his hands into fists at his side. Finally, he pressed his lips together and shook his head once. Satisfaction flooded me. I didn't bother suppressing my smile as I eased past him. "Liar."
Chapter 8. Alessio. The cold wind slapped my face as I headed down the mountain. It felt deserved, like nature was punishing me for my stupidity. "Would you like to suck my cock again, Alessio?" Worse than being attracted to my target, having him recognize it and use it against me. Failure sank in my belly, mixing with the anger to leave a bitter taste in my mouth. I was an idiot. I never should have let Giulio see me in Malaga. He and his whole family were bad luck for me. This time I didn't try to keep up with him as we ran. Hopefully he would disappear to the farmhouse and I could get my head on straight. 2 days. The ferry returned the day after tomorrow, by which time Giulio needed to be dead. I had to sort this out quickly. Then I could leave Scotland and keep busy with other jobs. When I reached the bottom, there was no one around, only rolling hills and craggy rocks. As I started for town, I dug my phone out of my pocket and dialed. "Is it done?" Sasha asked instead of a greeting. "It will be. I'll be on the next ferry in 2 days." "Thank fucking God," she said in her heavy Russian accent. "I am so bored." "I apologize for not providing you with enough entertainment." "Has been almost 3 months. Is a long time for you?" She paused. "Should I update D'Agostino? I've not talked to his people since Malaga." "No. The less contact with D'Agostino, the better. You can update him when it's done and get the rest of the payments." I disconnected and kept walking. I rolled my shoulders and tried to shake off the portentous feeling clinging to my skin. By the time I reached Mrs. Campbell's pub, I was calmer. Tomorrow I'd finish what I came here to do and disappear. All of this would be a terrible memory. The pub sat empty, not surprising at this early hour. I reached behind the bar for a glass, then poured myself a lager from the tap. Mrs. Campbell could add it to my bill. I sat down on one of the stools and took a long drink. Mrs. Campbell appeared from the storage room in the back. She had a clipboard in one hand and a pencil in the other. It's just you." I lifted my chin in greeting. She went behind the bar and set her things down. Then she eyed my glass.
Bit early in the day, isn't it?
It's breakfast.
I see.
Her sharp gaze studied my face.
Anything you want to talk about?
Frowning, I didn't say anything. Where would I even begin?
Give me a minute.
She disappeared into the kitchen. I continued to drink my beer, content to sit alone in the silence. I needed a proper shower and a change of clothes, but couldn't bring myself to care at the moment.
I wanted it to be you, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since.
Madre di Dio, how I wanted that to be true. But he was full of shit. Giulio and his runway looks and anonymous blowjobs. He was trying to fuck with my head. Unfortunately for me, it was working. I was finishing the last of the beer when Mrs. Campbell returned a plate in her hands. She set it down in front of me and refilled my empty pint glass.
Bacon sandwich, that's my homemade bread.
I took the beer but didn't touch the plate. Thank you.
You'd better eat it. I don't want my food going to waste.
She was still watching, so I put the glass down and took a bite of the sandwich. It was salty and crispy, the bread warm and crusty. All of a sudden, I was starving. She busied herself while I finished eating. It didn't take long, only 3 or 4 more bites. She nodded to the plate.
Would you like another?
Do you have any soup?
The best cockleeky in Scotland. I'll bring you some more bread.
She took the pint glass away and replaced it with water.
Does this have anything to do with nice Mr. Drakos?
Mr. Drakos wasn't so nice. How did you guess? She hooked a thumb toward the beer tap.
I knew a man troubles when I see them. Are you two still arguing?
You know we aren't boyfriends.
I figured when I saw you carrying the HKP-30L and heard that you threatened all the fishermen on the island.
It was telling that she recognized the type of pistol I carried. So you also know this isn't going to end well. Her dark brown gaze was understanding and weary. A woman who had seen and done a lot in her time.
All of us make our own choices, laddie, and it's never too late to change your direction.
Sometimes it is.
No, it's not. Don't live your life with regrets. People like us, we have enough demons as it is.
I twisted the water glass on the bar top, not meeting her eye. What branch were you in?
Well, now, that's a story for another time.
She straightened and reached for her clipboard.
I've got more inventory to do. Think about what I said.
After she left, I stared at the water droplets on the glass in my hand. She was wrong. I couldn't make my own choices. Not about this job. It wasn't a question of what, only a question of when.
Giulio. Indecision ate at me for the rest of the day. Axe in hand, I continued splitting logs for firewood. The back-breaking work was keeping me occupied. Maybe I'd exhaust myself and stop worrying whether I made a mistake with Alessio earlier. Had I misread him? I didn't think so. He definitely wanted me. Those were signs I definitely recognized. And he'd stalked me for months. But maybe he wouldn't act on it if I could get inside his head. Cazzo, I had to figure out what to do, and jogging with him every morning wasn't the answer. After today, I suspected he would become frustrated. He wouldn't want me using his attraction for me against him. That meant he had to decide to either fuck me or kill me. Hard to say which he'd decide on at this point. I was leaning toward killing. The axe cracked apart the log and sank into the stump below. I hung my head and panted. My arm muscles ached. I was not cut out for farm living. The men at the Castello would laugh their asses off if they could see me right now playing the part of a lumberjack. And being stuck inside my own head was not helpful. I needed another opinion on Alessio. Months ago, I would have called Frankie. She was my closest friend and confidant. Except she was married to my father, and this complicated things. I didn't want him to know about my current situation on Canna. There was Benito, my cousin, but he worked for Fausto. I couldn't ask him to keep this from my father. It wasn't fair. There was one other person, an Italian friend from when I lived in Belgium. Teo and Paolo had been close, and Teo and I stayed tight after Paolo's death. He was good at reading other people, and he definitely knew a lot about men. It was what made him a talented fashion designer. Since leaving Bruges, Theo had gone to Paris and worked his way up through the design houses. Now he was the head designer at a world-famous luxury brand. Deciding I was done with chopping, I carried the split wood into the farmhouse. I took my jacket off and started a fire, then found Theo's number in a small journal I carried with me. The charged burner phone powered up, and I began dialing. Allô? Theo? A long pause. Chi è all'appareil? It's Giulio, I said in Italian. Bello! Is it really you? It has been forever since you called me. I smiled, though he couldn't see. It's me. Is this your new mobile? I tried to call you a few times, but the old number had been disconnected. No, I'm without a permanent phone at the moment. Oh, I could hear shuffling, like he was moving around. In the background, a deep voice asked, Où vas-tu? Theo answered back in French. Then I heard him kiss someone quickly. I immediately felt guilty. I said, I can call you later. No, absolutely not. I've been worried about you. A door slid open, and I heard street sounds. Besides, Nick can wait. I just let him fuck me into the mattress. How long have you kept this one around? 2 weeks. It's a record, Bello. I grinned, happy for my friend. Congratulations. Maybe he'll be the one. He made a noise of disgust. There is no one. This is what I keep trying to tell you. This had been Theo's way of consoling me when Paolo died. At the time, it had felt as if I'd lost the greatest love of my life. Now, Paolo was a dull ache in my heart, ever present, but not crippling. I might never love someone like that again, so blindly and completely, and I was fine with it. I didn't ever want to experience that pain again. Once was enough. But, Theo said in a low, almost hushed tone, I really, really like this man. Good for you. Some day when we are alone and I have more time, you must tell me all about him. I will. Now, tell me how things are with you. I need advice. Oh, is it a man? Yes, but I need you to tell me if I'm making a mistake. Is he handsome? Yes, but then there is no but. Sleeping with a handsome man is never a mistake. Even if he is terrible in bed, he looks gorgeous while doing it. What if this man has been hired to assassinate me? Theo hissed through his teeth. He knew vaguely what Paolo and I had done in our former lives, that my father was someone important, and after the car bomb incident, he'd probably put the pieces together. Assassinate you? He whispered. Is he, from Bruges? The car bomb was someone else. This one is a sniper. There was a long pause. Bello, just how many people are trying to kill you? I closed my eyes and laughed at the incredulity in his voice, because what else could I do? My life was a bad James Bond movie at the moment. Several, it turns out, but can we get back to the assassin I am trapped with on this island? Ooh, tropical paradise. I like the sound of this already. Hardly. This place is the opposite of a tropical paradise. It's very small and cold, and I can't avoid him. Wait, this assassin isn't trying to kill you? That's just it. He isn't trying very hard. He's procrastinating, following me around, watching me. Ah, I begin to understand. Tell me everything. I gave Theo the details of what had happened since Malaga up until today. So please Tell me, because I no longer trust my own judgment." Theo paused. "Bello, stop picking up strange men in nightclubs. Dio mio, use an app like everyone else. Theo, focus. The assassin. I'm not misreading this, am I?" "No, this man, he wants to fuck you. He's desperate for it, but conflicted. So he will do nothing and wait for you to do something. I gave him an opening this morning. He didn't take it." "He will, but is that really the best plan?" "What do you mean?" "Why not kill him first?" "I'm not sure I can." I dragged a hand down my face and exhaled. "I've tried already and failed. His former military, very, very good." "Better than you?" Theo's voice rose with incredulity. "We have never discussed your background, but Paolo spoke very highly of you. He said you were a badass." A pang of sorrow echoed in my chest. Paolo was a good man. "I appreciate his faith in my skills, but this assassin is like a machine. There's no sneaking up on him." "So you are hoping to get him to fall in love with you and keep you alive?" "I think love is a reach. Lust sounds more probable, no?" "Yes, but if he is a machine, it will be hard to convince him to forget this assignment. Lust or love, it is a gamble, Bello." "So try to kill him again?" "Si, I think so. Seducing him only will delay the inevitable." This made sense. "Unless," Theo continued, "you can offer him more money than whoever hired him. Pay him not to kill you." "He said it's not just money, it's a debt he has to repay." "Then you are in a tough place, amico. Please, do not let him hurt you. I cannot lose another friend." My throat tightened, emotion welling inside me. "You won't." "Good, and who knows, if you fuck him, maybe this assassin can help you with the other men trying to kill you." Doubtful. Alessio didn't seem the type to do favors for anyone, especially a man he was supposed to eliminate. It wasn't like we were friends or lovers or anything. "Wait," I said. "Are you saying fuck him or kill him?" "I don't know." Theo sounded agitated, like he might be pacing. "This is all very difficult for me, Bello. I don't wish to give a wrong answer, and I still have post-orgasm fog in my brain." "I understand. Still, you've made me feel better." "I am glad, but now I am worried about you all over again." "Don't worry. It will work out. Possibly." "I hope so. When will I see you again?" "Soon, I hope. It's been too long." "Well, if you kill your assassin and want to come to Nice, ring me. Nick and I are taking his yacht there on holiday next week." A holiday on a yacht reminded me of home and my family. Fuck, I missed them. I'll keep that in mind. Ciao, Theo. Ciao, Bella. When the line was dead, I sat up, put the phone under my boot, and destroyed it. I wasn't sure I knew what to do yet, but I had to decide quickly. I was running out of time.
Chapter 9. Alessio. I decided to kill him the following afternoon. This allowed me the best light and the most time to set up. Then I only had one night to wait before the ferry arrived. Less time for the body to be discovered and an alarm raised. I stayed in my room, only leaving for meals. I cleaned my rifle, exercised, stayed hydrated, slept. The best time to set up would be during riposo, shortly after 1 o'clock. This was when, like every good Italian, Giulio would eat and relax. Probably read as well, since he'd ditched his electronics in Santorini. I put on my backpack and hefted my rifle case. No one saw me as I left town. I took the long way, skirting the area where the farmhouse was located. The woods were thin, but provided ample cover as I moved, staying low. There was a slight elevation about 60 meters from the farmhouse. This position offered the perfect angle of the back door, where he would come outside to either vape or feed the sheep. An easy shot. One I could make with my eyes closed. All I had to do was wait. I sat behind a shrub, well hidden from the view of the farmhouse. There I assembled and loaded my rifle, each step performed in the same order. I stored everything I didn't need in the brush. Lastly, I pulled on a brown beanie that would help me blend into the woods. On my belly, I crawled into position, making sure not to disturb the surrounding vegetation. It was slow going, but I had infinite patience when it came to carrying out my assignments. When I was where I wanted, I stabilized the rifle on its bipod legs. I took out my range finder to get the exact distance. Then I adjusted for elevation and windage and applied it to the sight for the perfect shot. Now all I had to do was wait. No movement from inside the farmhouse. That wasn't unusual. Most likely he was sprawled on the couch. The sheep were milling about, bleating, no doubt hungry. That was good. It meant he would come outside soon. I remained flat, completely still. The only movement was the slight rise and fall of my chest as I took measured breaths. The pad of my finger remained on the trigger, my face resting on the cheek weld. My heart was beating slow and steady as I watched. It's no different than any other assignment. I repeated this to myself in my head. I needed to be ready to squeeze off a shot. No hesitation this time. No thinking of bright blue eyes and blowjobs. It's no different than any other assignment. A twig snapped nearby. I shifted in the direction of the noise and saw Giulio there. He had a gun pointed at me, the same one he'd used the other day to destroy the bottles. "Don't fucking move," he snarled. My mind raced with a variety of scenarios. I could risk it, hoping his aim hadn't improved, and if he did hit me, I doubted he would kill me. As long as it wasn't in my chest or belly, I should be able to survive and take him out. But the best idea was to play along, see what he planned. "Clever of you," I said as he drew closer. "I thought you were napping." "I've been waiting for you, hiding out here since daybreak. I knew this was what you were going to do." "Allora, now what?" He crept closer, the gun aimed at my chest. "Get on the ground. Hands behind your head." I did as he asked. With my head turned to the side, I could see him out of my peripheral vision. All I needed was an opening. He couldn't beat me in hand-to-hand combat. Just as soon as he came within reach, he was several meters away, but I didn't take my eyes off him. "Is this where you have me dig my own grave? Or maybe give me a pair of cement shoes? You watch too many movies." "So you're not going to put a bullet in the back of my head?" "Yes, I am." Steadily, he came up on my right side. His gun remained on me the entire time. My rifle was close, but I wouldn't be able to shift it quickly enough to shoot him. I waited. Then he made a mistake. Lifting his foot, Giulio kicked at my rifle to get it out of my reach. That was when I pounced. Staying low, I rolled and tackled his legs. One yank and I had him down in the brush. The gun went off at some point and he landed on the ground with a grunt. "Cazzo!" he barked, but I was already crawling over him. I clamped one hand on his wrist to hold the gun out of the way and wrapped the other around his throat. I squeezed. He balked and landed a punch on my temple. A wave of dizziness hit me briefly, and he used the split second to slam the butt of the gun handle into my shoulder. Pain rippled through my torso, but I ignored it. I made another grab for the gun, and we wrestled on the cold ground. Each of us tried to get the upper hand. Snatching his wrist, I banged his arm on a tree branch to dislodge the weapon. The pistol flew out of his grip and landed out of reach in the vegetation. "Stronzo!" he seethed. He shifted his knee, aiming for a groin shot, so I edged sideways. This gave him just enough leverage to roll me over. Then I was on my back with Giulio on top of me, so I punched his kidney. We went on like this for a minute or two, trading jabs as we tried to gain the advantage. A searing pain tore through my left arm. He had a kitchen knife in his hand. The blade had just torn through my jacket and shirt to the flesh underneath. It wasn't deep, but it was annoying. He wasn't weak. He was lean and strong and quick, scrappy. But I was bigger, with bigger hands and better technique. I grabbed his hand that was holding the knife and peeled his pinky finger back until I nearly broke it. Hissing, he dropped the knife and I tossed it away. Then I got in position and held him down, using my bulk to pin him with his arms over his head. Panting for breath and covered in dirt and grime, we were left to stare at one another. "Get off me!" He strained and bucked, but I was immovable. I told him calmly, "You should have shot me when you had the chance." Anger boiled inside him. I could see it in every line of his face, each crease of his narrowed eyes. I could say the same about you. I knew why I hadn't killed him before today. Was it possible Giulio felt the same? Had he hesitated today because of the strange attraction between us? I wanted it to be you, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since. No, it wasn't possible. Giulio knew what would happen if he didn't kill me first. He wouldn't risk it. Not easing up my grip in the least, I watched him. His chest rose and fell as he struggled for breath, but he didn't look away. I was stretched out on top of him so I could feel every bone, every muscle of his long frame. I could detail the chiseled features and angular jaw, the straight nose, those gorgeous blue eyes framed by long, thick lashes. He was devastating this close up. "Why didn't you kill me?" I asked. "I was about to." Each word was carefully enunciated through clenched teeth. "Cazzata, you could have pulled the trigger from over there. I was worried I'd miss. Then you would shoot me." It could be true, I supposed, but he didn't strike me as inept. Not the man who just wrestled with me on the ground for 5 minutes and tried to fillet my arm, and not after our target practice. I pushed, unwilling to let it go. "Why did you say those things yesterday? About Malaga and the blowjob?" He blinked a few times like he couldn't believe I'd brought it up. Then he tried to move. "Get off me and I'll tell you." I didn't want to give up my advantage. "No, tell me now." "I'm not saying shit until you let me up, Stronzo." I wished I didn't care, that I could kill him without answers. But I wanted to know every thought in his head. I was fascinated, even if he was the cause of my own destruction. I considered my chances of survival if I let him up. The weapons were far enough away that I wasn't worried, and I could grapple him to the ground again if necessary. He was tired, where I was not. Using my arms, I pushed up and eased my body off his, shifted my feet to stand. I thought Giulio would scramble to his feet and try to run, but he didn't. He remained on the ground, propped on his elbows, and stared up at me. I offered a hand. After looking at it for a beat, he clasped my palm in his, and I pulled him to his feet. Then I let him go. My limbs were loose and relaxed, muscles ready. Giulio seemed on edge, his body locked and anxious to fight. He panted and watched me, dark hair hanging in his face. Neither of us spoke. I had infinite patience, and I wasn't the one who needed to explain. "You've had every chance to kill me," he finally said, his voice a deep rasp. "I didn't even know you were here. It would have been easy to do it and slip away. 2 ferries have come and gone since you arrived on this island. Yet you've been watching me, giving me advice on improving my aim, running with me." "And?" I prompted when he didn't continue. "And it's exactly what you did in Malaga, and again in Santorini. This is a pattern with you.
So I wonder, and I tried to figure out the reason. There's only one explanation, Alessio. The air around us shifted. He knows. With my heart now pounding, I felt my senses go into overdrive. I was cognizant of everything around me, each part of my body. The hard ground beneath my boots, the pain in my shoulder, the burn in my arm, the expansion of my lungs with every breath, the blood rushing through my veins. I didn't want him to say it, because it was true, and giving voice to it would only bring me shame. I tried to deflect. Maybe I don't see you as a threat. I can take my time, knowing you can never get away from me. His lips curled into a sexy smile. It was the first time he'd looked at me like this, like he wanted to strip me down and fuck me into oblivion, and I didn't know what to do. It disoriented me, made me want things I couldn't possibly have. My mouth went dry. That is not why, assassino, and you know it. When you jerk off, who do you picture? Who are you imagining? I didn't want to answer. Is it me? He took 3 steps closer, putting himself within my reach. I make your dick hard. No. I snorted and tried to make light of it, though my insides were on fire. So you like that the man who will murder you also wants to fuck you? I do. Yes. The truth was there in blue eyes now darkened with lust. Maybe it's fucked up, but I like knowing that you crave my cock again so much that you're risking your career and your life, and I would be a fool not to use that against you. These mind games are a waste of time. In the end, I will do what needs to be done. I don't think so. He took another step closer to me, then another. We were almost touching now. He let his gaze linger on my mouth. I think you'd rather blow me again. I did, yes. Very badly. But I would not admit it to him. Instead, I lifted one eyebrow and tried to appear unaffected. I think you miss having a cock in your mouth, Principe. I have a very nice one. Maybe if you do a halfway decent job, I'll let you live. Very slowly, achingly slowly, he placed one palm on my chest. I could feel the heat of him through the layers separating us. Then he dragged his hand higher until he reached the bare skin of my throat. Sliding his palm to the side, he clasped my neck as if holding me still. Goosebumps raced over me at the feel of his firm grip. I couldn't move, mesmerized by the heat and aggression staring up at me. At the moment, no one else existed. This man was all I could see and feel. His voice was barely a whisper. Have you been thinking about it? Remembering the taste of my cum? The truth tumbled out before I could stop it. Yes. Gaze locked on mine, he reached for the zipper of my jacket with his free hand. Then he pulled to lower it, each metal tooth unlocking in a sensual rasp. When the sides were free, he pushed the heavy cloth over my right shoulder, then the left. It slid down my arms and dropped to the ground. I was left in a tight compression shirt, much like the kind I wore when I ran. Giulio looked at my chest and shoulders for a long second, then back to my face. Take out my cock, he ordered, and get on your knees. I could have refused. It was the smart thing to do. But I was weak when it came to Giulio, and he knew it. Like in a daze, I had reached for the button on his jeans. I flicked it open and unzipped, careful of the thick bulge now pressing against his briefs. It was already hard for me, a fact I liked very much. Reaching in, I wrapped my hand around his cock. He was hot, the skin stretched tight, and my mouth watered. I jacked him slowly, wanting to prolong this,
wanting to torture him. He sucked in a quick breath. Fuck, keep going. He shoved his briefs and jeans lower on his hips, giving more room. Tighter. That's it. I stroked faster, harder. We were both looking down at my hand, our heads nearly touching. I thumbed the underside of his shaft, then moved up to the slit. I smeared the pre-cum waiting there over his skin, using it like lube as I continued pumping my fist. His hand suddenly twitched on my neck. In your mouth, he growled. I need to get inside your mouth again. I lowered myself to my knees. Giulio didn't hesitate in putting his cock to my lips. His blue gaze was feverish, wild, and it made me wonder which one of us wanted this more. Because if he wanted it even half as much as I did, then we were in trouble. Va bene, he crooned as he slipped past my lips and onto my tongue. I sucked hard, drawing him deep. He didn't look away and instead concentrated on my mouth. His free hand rested on my head, almost petting me. Dio, your mouth is so hot and wet. I could fuck it for days. That's it. You're so eager, aren't you? You need my cum again, no? In answer, I flicked and swirled my tongue, giving him extra stimulation. Then I took him to the back of my mouth, while I tried to relax my jaw and my throat. I wanted all of him. I swallowed around the head of his cock, and his thighs tightened under my palms. Cazzo, I wish I could fuck your throat. Oh, Alessio, the things I would do to you if I had time. His hand moved to the top of my head, and he began rocking his hips, fucking my mouth. It was similar to Malaga, but better. This time I knew what he liked. I knew he wanted it deep and messy, to overtake me. He got off on the degradation, the control, of having a man on his knees, servicing him, but not just any man. Me. I wanted it to be you, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since. I stared up at him, his head thrown back, face slack with pleasure. He was using me, but I held all the power. I controlled this, not him. It was time to prove it. I moaned around his thick shaft, sending vibrations through his flesh. Then I cupped his balls, rolling them in my fingers. His muscles began to tremble. It's so good, he muttered. It's too good. I pulled off with a pop. His dick bobbed in front of me while I massaged his balls. Giulio frowned, his breathing uneven. What are you doing? Make me come, assassino. Beg me, principe. Bending, I ran the flat of my tongue over his sack. Then I'll let you shoot down my throat. He grabbed his cock and began stroking. Maybe I'll shoot on your face instead. You know that isn't what you want. I held his wrist, making it impossible for him to jack off. You would much rather fuck my mouth, no? A bead of fluid leaked from the head of his dick. I licked it up with the tip of my tongue. Figlio d'un cane, he hissed. Dai, Alessio, per favore, prendile un bocca. Still giving orders, but you did say please. I swallowed him down, taking even more than before, and sucked hard. I dedicated myself to the task, bobbed my head, worked a steady rhythm, kept my tongue flat and the pressure tight. My own cock throbbed in my pants, but I ignored it. Perfetto. Ah, sì. Non smettere. He didn't need to worry. I wasn't stopping. Seconds later, he shouted and cum shot onto my tongue, the salty taste of him flooding my senses. His dick pulsed as his balls emptied into my mouth, while his fingers clutched my hair. It went on and on, like he'd been saving it up for me. The idea of that got me so fucking hot. I resisted the urge to open my throat. After Malaga, I knew what he wanted. Finally, He stopped twitching and tilted his head toward me. His skin was flushed, eyes glazed from his orgasm, but I could see the eagerness, the anticipation. "Are you holding it all in your mouth like a good slut?" I jerked my chin once, his semen rolling over my tongue. "Va bene." He stepped back to put his cock away. When he was zipped and buttoned, he stroked my head, pushing my hair out of my face. "So big and dangerous. But put a cock in your mouth and you're so eager, so needy." I waited, knees screaming in pain, my cock begging for attention. But there was a reason why we both couldn't forget Malaga. I wouldn't disappoint him. Fichissimo. Crazy hot. Giulio dragged a finger down my cheek. "Now, swallow." I let it all go down my throat. Something dark, almost sinister, flashed in his eyes. "You definitely picked the wrong career, assassino. You could give blowjobs for a living." I got to my feet. "This is where you tell me you won't reciprocate, no?" His fingers tangled in the front of my shirt as he jerked me closer. "This is where I tell you to get inside the farmhouse so that I can fuck you in my bed."
Chapter 10. Giulio. I enjoyed the look of surprise on his face. Alessio had expected me to leave him hard and unsatisfied, as I'd done with countless men over the last 4 years, including him. Yet I'd invited him inside, to my bed. I hadn't planned to when this all started, but we'd firmly established that neither one of us intended to kill the other, at least not today, and fucking him was exactly what I wanted to do right now. That blowjob only took the edge off. Lust still sat heavy in my groin, my balls tight and full. For whatever reason, I was drawn to him, and our fight had only worsened that craving. Alessio was long and lean, packed with muscle, strong and deadly. I was a good fighter. I knew how to handle a knife and a gun. I'd tortured and maimed, killed and dismembered. But I couldn't beat this man. He was like a machine, his punches like blows from a sledgehammer. Nothing seemed to hurt him, not even when I sliced his arm. No one had ever been able to subdue me so quickly. When Alessio held me down, I liked it, far too much, unfortunately. To the assassin's credit, he recovered quickly. "You want to fuck?" "Yes, I do." "What happened to putting a bullet in the back of my head?" I gestured to his rifle. "What happened to shooting me in the forehead?" "You are trying to manipulate me with your dick. Just like you manipulated me with blowjobs." He hesitated, so I heaved a sigh and rubbed my jaw. Alessio, I don't know what the hell I'm doing anymore. All of this is crazy. But we're attracted to each other, and we're trapped on this god-forsaken island. Do you really want to spend it hiding in the woods?" "I can't back out of this contract, Giulio." I didn't believe him. Whoever hired him wasn't as powerful or rich as my father. Even I had several million euros in offshore accounts. No way was his client someone I couldn't either outbid or kill myself. Why? Because I owe the client, and if I fuck this up, my career and possibly my life is over. There has to be a way around it. Nothing is inevitable. He put his hands on his hips and stared off at the farmhouse. "You sound like Mrs. Campbell." He'd been talking about this with Mrs. Campbell? I set that confusing fact aside for later. "Who is your client?" "I won't tell you, so stop asking." "I have a right to know." "No, you don't.
I'm not a negotiator or mediator. I'm an assassin, Principe. Fine, but how do we know you're not working for the men who killed Paolo? No, definitely not. I told you, car bombs haven't been used since Takamura and Cosa Nostra in the 80s. Yes, I remember. I glared at him, irritated. You will give me the name eventually. I was given interrogation and survival training by the army. You think to do worse? Yes, I did. I could tie him up and edge him until he talked, or finger his prostate until he was almost ready to come, and then stop. I would wear him down. No way you trained for the type of techniques I would use. I see. The edge of his mouth hitched. I wouldn't mind that torture, actually. Now I was thinking about it. My groin tightened as blood rushed to my dick. Do you want to fuck or not? Are you always this direct? Would you prefer if I wrote it down in a letter? An official invitation, maybe? He cocked his head and stared at me thoughtfully. You're a smartass. How did I not know this? Because I hadn't interacted with anyone on more than a superficial level in a long time. Ages. Maybe not since Paolo. I had to be strong, self-reliant. Even with my family, I was guarded. Almost dying and living on the run had done that to me. I didn't want to think that it might be Alessio causing me to drop my guard. I snapped. Just answer the question, Assassino. You are cranky for a man who just came like a fountain. And I'd like to reciprocate if only you'd answer the damn question. So we fuck tonight, tomorrow, for how long? He folded his arms across his wide chest, drawing my attention to his muscles. So hot, I really needed to see him naked. Does it matter? I would fuck him as long as it took to get the name of whoever hired him. Aren't you worried I'll kill you in your sleep? No, I wasn't. He didn't want to kill me. For some reason he felt he had to, but I would get answers regarding that later. You should be worried I'll kill you first. He snorted, the bastard. Anger sparked hot in my chest. That was enough. He could keep his blue balls. I wasn't going to beg. Vaffanculo, Alessio. I started through the brush in the direction of the farmhouse. Later I would return to retrieve the pistol. At the moment I needed to be where he wasn't. I'd figure out what to do about him once I wasn't so pissed off. As I passed his rifle, I snatched it up, not slowing down in the least. "Where do you think you're going with that?" he called. "Call it insurance," I said over my shoulder. "You want it, you know where to find it." I heard him muttering behind me, but couldn't make out what he said. I continued toward the farmhouse. Fuck this. I didn't need this frustration and confusion. My life was complicated enough. I had to get back to civilization, to my electronics, find whoever was responsible for that car bomb. I would get on that ferry tomorrow and disappear. I didn't care what Alessio did anymore, and I was definitely going to purge those 2 blowjobs from my mind by visiting the first nightclub I came across. Just as I stepped through the door, an arm pushed me inside. I stumbled forward, and the rifle clattered to the floor. What the fuck? Then he was on me, shoving me against the wall and pressing his body against mine. He slammed our mouths together. It took a second for my brain to catch up. I hadn't even heard him approach. Alessio was kissing me, his tongue already deep in my mouth. Lust exploded inside me, a rush of white-hot need so fierce that I was already panting with it. I grabbed the back of his head with both hands and returned the kiss. It wasn't sweet or gentle. It was like we were trying to devour each other. I took out my anger and irritation on his mouth, using my lips, teeth, and tongue. He was hot and wet, the salty taste of my cum still lingering. My groin tightened and my dick thickened with each rapid beat of my heart. More. That was my only thought as I dragged him closer. I couldn't get enough. Then his hands were everywhere, removing my jacket, working my shirt off. We broke apart only for a split second as he tore the fabric over my head. In a flash, his lips were attached to mine again, our tongues dueling feverishly while his palm swept over every bit of skin he could reach. I began grinding our hips together, unable to help myself. Through my jeans I could feel his erection through his thin pants, and each brush of his hardness made me see stars. Fuck, yes. Soon we were building up a rhythm, working together, shifting and rolling hips, our frantic breath mingling. It was so good. If I wasn't careful, I could come like this. I broke off and held his shoulders. Alessio's flushed olive skin and lust-drunk expression stared down at me. I said, "Bed now." He didn't argue. Bending, he tore the laces of his boots and removed them. I quickly did the same, but slower, because I was distracted by the sight of his ass flexing as he walked down the hallway to the bedroom. Cristo Santo, he was perfect. The bedroom door was half open when I got there, so I pushed it wide. Madre di Dio. His tall frame was stretched diagonally across the tiny mattress, a sinful slash of bare limbs and dark, coarse hair, lithe and muscular. His frame had no flab, nothing wasted. He was sculpted, but not bulky, from a gym. A cornicello hung around his neck on a gold chain, the amulet nestled below his collarbones. He hadn't struck me as a superstitious man, but so much about him continually surprised me. He still wore his briefs, but I could see the large bulge behind the cloth. I couldn't wait to get my hands on it. I stripped my pants off slowly, even though I felt ready to leap out of my skin. I wanted him so badly. His cool eyes burned intensely as he watched. He examined the tattoos, the scars, signs of my former life. Much of my torso was covered with ink, markings that meant something once upon a time. Alessio reached for his crotch and stroked his erection over his briefs. "You are a work of art, Principe," he said softly. I didn't like the way those words wrapped around my battered heart. I focused on his body instead, and the red slash on his arm caught my attention. I knew from experience how bad those wounds could hurt. Alessio noticed where I was staring and shook his head. "It doesn't hurt. Come here." "I hope it stings like a bitch." His lips twisted with amusement. "Bloodthirsty and hot. I like it." Naked, I crawled onto the bed and dragged my palms up his legs, over his hips. I skimmed his stomach and chest. He was warm skin, stretched tight over ropey muscle and strong bone, and I wanted to bite him, mark him, devour him. "Tell me what you want." "You said we were going to fuck." "You ready to bottom for me, assassino?" "Unless you'd rather bottom for me, yes." "I don't bottom," I said, bending to drag my tongue over his ribs, along his pecs, brushed his nipple. Then I stretched out on top of him and sank my teeth into the curve of his neck. He shivered and gasped, his fingers clutching my hips. "Never. Only once. I didn't enjoy it." "That's because it wasn't with me." Arrogant asshole. He thought he could do better than Paolo? I rolled my hips and ground our dicks together. The friction felt amazing. Craving a connection to him, I sealed our lips together and slipped my tongue in his mouth. We continued to rub against each other, gaining speed, until he tore his lips off mine. "Mingia," he hissed. "If you keep doing that, I'm going to come." I pushed up and reached for the nightstand. Digging around, I found what I needed. "You go on the run with condoms and lube?" I lifted a brow. "You don't?" "No, I wasn't thinking about all the dick I was going to get on Cano when I was packing." "You're not going to get any dick at all if you don't shut up and take your briefs off." That got a half smile out of him, and one of his dimples popped. Molto bello. My chest swelled, but I quickly shoved any of those fanciful thoughts away. He shoved his briefs down his legs, and his hard dick slapped against his stomach. I stared, mesmerized. Madre de Dio, it was picture-perfect. The kind of girth and length that landed you in porn. Fuck, Alessio. He was already leaking, stretched tight. Eagerly I reached for him. I stroked a few times, enjoying the sight of my hand on his shaft, until he stopped me, saying, "I'm too close." Then turn over. I rose up, and Alessio rolled onto his stomach. I raked my eyes over his broad back and trim waist. The tight ass and long legs, God, so he was beautiful. Leaning down, I kissed the firm globes of his ass. I moved up his spine, pressing soft kisses as I went, pleased when he trembled. I ground my shaft into the cleft of his ass, and he pushed back against me. I bit the shell of his ear. "Do you need to be fucked, Alessio? Do you need me to fill you up?" "Yes," he said, and let out a long moan as I thrust my hips against him. "Va bene," I murmured, and trailed my lips along his neck and over his shoulder. He felt so good beneath me, all needy and eager, his strength and brawn mine to use as I wished. His skin was smooth, and I got lost in the exploration of his shoulder blades, the ridges of his spine. My cock throbbed against him, and I had to fight the urge to take him roughly without any prep. Finally, I reached for the lube. I flicked open the cap and moved to my haunches between his splayed thighs. "Look at how gorgeous you are." Spreading his cheeks, I drizzled the lube down his crack and over his hole. "Your ass is perfect." His fingers clenched the sheets when I started to massage him open. Was he nervous? "Relax," I whispered. "I will take good care of you." It has been a while for me. I understood. This wasn't easy, trusting another person intimately. After a few more circles, my thumb slipped into his hot, tight passage, and my eyes nearly rolled back in my head. I couldn't wait to feel this ass strangling my cock. "Oh, fuck, that's it. Let me inside." I stroked his hip and pumped my thumb until he was rocking into the mattress. More lube, then I worked in 2 fingers. Alessio moved onto his knees and began stroking his cock in time with my hand. A light coating of sweat broke out on his skin, and he was so beautiful like this, trusting me, giving over to me. It felt like a gift I hadn't earned. "Principe," he pleaded, his voice a deep rumble that tugged at my insides. "Don't worry, I'm going to give you what you need." With my free hand I reached for a condom. I handed the foil packet to Alessio, and, keeping my fingers inside him, shifted to where he could reach my dick. "Get me ready to fuck you." He opened the package quickly, efficiently. The condom went on, and I had to grit my teeth at the rough way he handled me, exactly as I liked, with big calloused hands that weren't gentle in the least. Then he used lube on me, slicking the latex. "Stop!" I jerked out of his grip. "I need to get inside you." Blood whooshed in my ears, my pulse pounding along the length of my cock as I moved behind him and withdrew my fingers. I lined up at his tight ring of muscle and pushed slowly. The crown slipped in and I couldn't breathe. Tight. God, so tight. When Alessio tensed, I smoothed my palms over his hips. "That's it. Just wait," I said. "Let me inside. I need to be deep inside. Relax." After a few seconds, I advanced, sinking further, invading. He reached to stroke himself, but I smacked his hip. "Not yet. I don't want you coming so soon." He huffed, but placed his palm back on the mattress. I began rolling my hips ever so slightly, pulling back and pushing in a little farther each time. It was easy now, and I lost the ability to think. There was just sensation, the need to ride him, to chase my own orgasm. He surrounded me, a perfect fit, almost like he'd been made for me. Our hips met, and Alessio writhed restlessly beneath me, muttering, cursing in a dialect I recognized as Sicilian. He was Sicilian? I wouldn't have guessed. Though my body was screaming for friction, I couldn't help but order, "Beg me." He didn't hesitate. "Ti prego, scopami forte." The words lit a spark inside me. I grabbed his hips in both hands and began thrusting hard. His body rocked against mine, and I lost myself in the back and forth, the drag of his hot passage along my length. Fuck, he felt so good. This is what you needed, no? This is why you followed me in that nightclub, because you wanted my dick. You're a slut for it, aren't you? He moaned, and I changed the angle slightly. He shouted as I found his prostate. I closed my eyes and tried not to come. That's it, right there. That is the perfect spot. "Don't stop," he said huskily. I pounded him, our bodies now slick with sweat. Part of me wished I could see his face while I fucked him, so I could watch as the pleasure overtook him. Next time, he began shaking, his muscles clenching. "My dick, please." His lips curled into a cruel smile. I liked him, begging and desperate. More than anything, I wanted to make him come from my cock alone. Nothing in the world felt better than a prostate orgasm. "No, don't dare touch it, Alessio. I'm all you need. Only me." He groaned, and I kept at it. If I hadn't come in the assassin's mouth moments ago, I wouldn't have lasted this long. Already I could feel my balls drawing tighter, but I wanted him to come first. No idea why it mattered all of a sudden, but it did. "Fuck, fuck, fuck," he chanted, his head hanging down. "Fuck, please." Slick slaps filled the room, our exhales picking up in volume. I grabbed his hair for leverage and yanked him back toward me, riding him properly. Instantly his muscles contracted and he shouted to the ceiling. His body began milking mine, squeezing me as his climax went on and on. It was too good. I couldn't take any more. After a few more thrusts, pleasure burst through me, rushing up my legs and out my dick. The orgasm dragged me under, leaving me helpless as jets of cum shot into the latex. As it ebbed, I slumped over him and tried to regain my breath. I was weak and dizzy, like he'd turned me inside out. That had been fucking amazing. 1,000 times better than a quick blowjob in a club. It felt right in ways I couldn't explain. I already wanted to do it again.
I gripped the base of the condom and pulled out. Alessio hissed when I slipped free, and I patted his hip before departing for the toilet. At least tonight, the only way one of us would kill the other was with a dick.
Chapter 11. Alessio. My limbs were still shaking when Giulio flopped back down on the bed. Our bodies were close, but not touching. "That was fun," he said. I shifted to face him. "No regrets?" The edge of his mouth kicked up. "None." "You're very good at that." He dragged a hand down his face. "A bit out of practice. God help me if this got any better with him. I think he fucked my brains into next week." "I want to shower," he announced, stretching his long body. I closed my eyes, exhausted and dick-drunk. "Go ahead, then. Come with me." That caught me by surprise. I cracked one lid to peer at him. "Shower with you?" "Yes." "Do you have something against it?" "No, I just... Andiamo, assassino." He slapped my hip and rolled off the bed. "Let's get clean, and then we can discuss my dick in your mouth again." I snorted as I slowly sat up. "I need more than a few minutes before my muscles are capable of that." He disappeared into the washroom. "That's okay," he called. "You can lie there and I'll fuck your mouth." Unbelievably, my dick twitched. That sounded hot. The shower started, and by the time I entered the room, Giulio was stepping into the small tub. The two of us would be a tight fit. Still, I opened the curtain and slid into the steamy spray. Giulio was under the water, running his hands through his hair, wetting it. Cristo, he was sexy. He was truly a work of art. No museum in Florence has anything remotely as beautiful as this man. I frowned when the water stung my arm. The knife wound. I'd forgotten about it. I pinched the cut, reopening it to flush it out. Red water ran down my arm. "Here," he handed me the soap. I cleaned my arm carefully, then used the soap everywhere else. "Will it need stitches?" he asked, tilting his head toward my arm. I almost laughed. This was nothing. I'd experienced far worse. "No." He shook his head. "I don't know why I find that so hot, but I do. Does anything hurt you?" "There's something wrong with that boy." Though it had been decades, my father's voice still haunted me. If I had been a better son, maybe he would have stayed. Maybe my mother wouldn't have given me away. Maybe. But there was no changing the past. Just like I couldn't change the fact that I had just let my target fuck me into oblivion. He reached for the shampoo and his hip brushed my stomach. "So, now what?" "What do you mean?" I knew what he meant, but I wanted to hear his thoughts first. "We had two options, Alessio. Kill each other or fuck each other. We obviously chose option B." I leaned against the tile and watched him clean his hair. "This doesn't change anything. It only delays it." "Aren't you getting tired of saying that?" He rinsed and wiped the water out of his eyes. "Stop lying to yourself and to me." Irritation slid along my skin like needles. "You don't understand how the real world works, Principe. You live in a bubble of privilege where you're protected by your father's name and bank account." He froze and his eyes went glacial. Stepping closer, he crowded me into the tile. "You condescending prick. I've been living outside the Mafia on my own for 4 years, on the run for my life, anonymously. No one knows my last name, and I haven't taken a dime from my father since I left." In a flash, I flipped our positions. His back slammed against the wall. Slick, rough skin met mine as I pressed our lower halves together. I used my hand on his throat to keep him pinned there. "Do you think your father isn't having you watched? That he isn't aware of every move you made the last 4 years?"
Ma dai, Giulio. I saw the resentment boiling in his mind. He knew what I was saying was true, and he didn't like it. Get off me, he snarled. Because you don't like to hear the truth. Before I could brace for it, he grabbed my wrist and twisted. At the same time, he shifted his body weight, using gravity to pull me off balance. I righted myself, but not before he was behind me, shoving me face first into the tile. His hips met my ass, and I could feel him begin to thicken against me. "You're kidding hard right now?" I asked over my shoulder. He sank his teeth into my shoulder and rocked his hips. His cock slipped through my cleft. "I can't help it. Fighting with you gets me fucking excited, apparently." My dick began to respond to this too, perking up. "You like to hold me down." "Fuck yes, I do." More grinding. "Let's stop talking. I want to make you come again." A tremble went through me as blood pooled in my groin. Now it was all I could think about. "I want that too." He slapped my ass, then turned off the water. "Go, get on the bed. I feel like blowing you." That was something I was dying to see. I opened the curtain and stepped out, grabbing a towel to quickly dry off. Giulio watched, his gaze burning my skin as he waited. The air was cool on my damp flesh as I settled on the bed. I was half hard, so I stroked myself while I waited for him. Was he really going to let me fuck his mouth? I'd imagined it so often that I could scarcely believe it might actually happen. He strode into the bedroom, his muscles shifting under all that inked olive skin. His eyes dragged over my limbs and settled on where I was jacking my cock. "Stop," he ordered. Biting my lip, I obeyed. I didn't know why, but his dominance and aggression turned me on. Maybe I was a closeted submissive. Or maybe it was just this man. Giulio settled between my legs and I clenched my muscles, struggling for calm. I couldn't look away. I didn't want to miss a minute of what was about to happen. He nuzzled my shaft, inhaling me. Then he flicked his tongue over my crown. I hissed. I was already impatient. I didn't want to be teased. I needed to get inside his mouth and feel those perfect lips wrapped around me. "Sac, principe," I ordered, taking his hair in my fist. "Take me deep and make me come." The head of my cock disappeared inside his mouth, and I lost my train of thought. Wet heat surrounded me, his jaw stretching to accommodate the width. Oh, fuck. I hadn't expected it to feel this good, or to enjoy the sight this much. This was no gentle wave of pleasure. It was a storm of sensation, all focused in my groin. He moaned and the vibration sank into my shaft. I thrust up, unable to help myself. "Feels amazing," I gasped. "Keep going." He began sucking in earnest, his cheeks hollowing with the effort. His mouth, Madre de Dio. The suction was perfect as he worked the base of my cock with his hand. He didn't try to take me deep, but I didn't need it. Not with whatever he was doing with his lips and tongue. And watching him made it even better. I wanted this to last for days, weeks. "Fuck, you are good at that," I whispered. He began working my balls, rolling them in his fingers. But he wasn't gentle, like he was afraid of hurting me. Instead, he squeezed them, pulled on my sack. I was balancing on the edge of pleasure and pain, and soon my legs were clenching, my body on fire. When he sped up, I knew my orgasm wasn't far off. My skin felt too tight, like I might explode at any moment. Then he scraped the sensitive underside with his teeth, and I couldn't hold back any longer. Ropes of cum shot out from my cock and into his mouth as my body trembled uncontrollably. My vision blurred, and I shouted to the ceiling. The room finally stopped spinning, and I tried to catch my breath. Quickly, Giulio pushed up to his knees, and I saw that he was already jerking himself off. Had blowing me turned him on?
3 more tugs and he clutched my thigh, his eyelids slamming closed. Alessio! Fuck! Thick spurts began coating my stomach. I watched, transfixed as his mouth slackened, bliss etched in every one of his features. Absolutely nothing could have dragged my attention away from him as he came. Bellissimo. With one final tug, he released his cock and flopped onto the bed next to me. I stared at the ceiling, thinking, no question it was the best blowjob of my life. Not necessarily because of the technique, but because of the man giving it to me. I'd watched him for so long and wondered what it would be like. Now I knew, and I would risk almost anything for him to do it again. I think you broke my jaw, assassino. Shifting, I regarded him as he rubbed the lower half of his face. Such a baby. Your dick is massive. You'll live, principe. Stronzo. Reaching, he dragged a fingertip through his comm on my stomach. Then he brought his hand to my mouth. I opened my lips and licked the digit clean. Giulio's nostrils flared as he inhaled sharply. I like the way you look, drenched in my cum. Grabbing the back of his head, I jerked him forward for a deep kiss with plenty of tongue. He kissed me back, his fingers threading into my hair. When we broke apart, I asked, "How does it taste, the two of us together?" His lips twisted into a devious smile. Like bad ideas and imminent danger all rolled into one? I laughed. Good, because we are going to do it again as soon as we both recover.
Giulio. We eventually made our way to the kitchen. It was the middle of the night, and we'd skipped supper in favor of another round of orgasms. Alessio settled on a bar stool at the island while I found provisions. I was wearing briefs, but Alessio remained completely naked except for the chain around his neck. I set a dish of olives in front of him, then poured him a glass of wine. "Did you poison it?" he asked, lifting it to his mouth. "And ruin good wine? Ma dai!" I returned to the risotto I was stirring on the stove. "I decided to poison your risotto instead." "I'm still surprised that you can cook." Right, he'd been stalking me for months. "I don't have Zia to feed me anymore. If I didn't cook, I would starve." "I can't really cook," he admitted. "Eggs and pasta." "Please tell me you don't use a jarred sauce." His mouth curved into a small, embarrassed smile that showed off his right dimple. Mamma mia, I wanted to bite that dimple. "Jarred is good enough." "Zia would smack the back of your head if she heard you say that." "You must miss her." "I do." I sighed and watched my spoon swirling in the pan. I spent a lot of time in her kitchen growing up. With my father busy running an empire, most of my well-being had fallen on Zia. There weren't other boys on the estate to play with. My father didn't allow it. I had my cousins sometimes, but I was the future heir. Fausto said I would rule over the estate one day. I had to be a strong leader, ready to make the tough decisions, not become friendly with everyone. That sounds lonely. I shrugged and continued stirring. Almost as lonely as a boy sent to live with his nonna. "Is this why you like parties and clubs? Because you were denied this as a child?" "I can lose myself in a crowd, be anyone I want, do anything I want. Drugs and booze, sex, whatever. I can step outside of my own skin." "Did you hate being the heir that much?" "Hate is the wrong word." I reached for my wine glass and leaned against the counter. The responsibility was mine for as long as I could remember, and hating the responsibility meant hating myself, so I didn't hate it. There were parts I loved. The way people treated me, accommodated me, any club, any restaurant, anything I wanted was available with a snap of my fingers. But I took a long swallow of wine,
and tried to put my feelings into words. But I resented it, too. Every day was filled with dread. Was this the day I would be forced to marry a woman I cared nothing for? Or when everyone learned I was gay? Worse, was it the day my father would be murdered? There is no way to prepare for a future you don't want. He plucked an olive out of the dish and slipped it in his mouth. Still, it's foolish of you to stay away. The Castello is the only place you are virtually untouchable. Virtually untouchable is not untouchable, and an enemy stormed the estate a few months before I left, so I know it's possible. What enemy? I resumed stirring the risotto. It was thickening nicely. The men of another Mafia don. You've probably heard of him. Enzo D'Agostino. Yes, I've heard the name. His voice sounded odd, so I glanced over. What? Nothing. I try to stay out of the local Mafia squabbles, but I know the names of the players. Does that mean you don't work much in Italy? I work mostly in Eastern Europe and South America, occasionally in the Middle East. What was your last assignment? You know, before me. The scar on his face twisted as he frowned. You know I don't talk about my clients. I'm not asking who hired you. I'm asking about who you killed. A politician in Minsk. Do you know why? No. My eyebrows shot up. He said it so calmly, so matter-of-fact, like just another day at the office. I'd done terrible things for my father, for our brotherhood, but I always knew why. And that doesn't bother you, not knowing why. If they tell me why, then I start to rationalize whether the person deserves to die or not. That is not my job. I took my eyes off the risotto briefly to glare at him. So, you don't want to know why you've been hired to kill me? What makes you think I don't know? The wooden spoon fell out of my hand and into the risotto. Do you? He took a long drink, his throat working as he swallowed. Then he carefully set the wineglass on the island. I don't want to have this conversation. Fuck the risotto. I turned off the gas burner and propped my hand on the island, met his stare. Alessio, we need to talk about how this is going to work. What do you mean? Don't be a dick. You know what I mean. This, here, us, fucking. He tapped his fingertips on the island while he regarded me thoughtfully. Can we call a temporary truce? For how long? A month. The answer came quickly, as if he'd been considering this in his head. A month with him sounded nice after my many fantastic orgasms today, but it was a long time with a man hired to kill me. Why a month? I don't think a week or even 2 weeks is long enough for all the filthy things I want to do to you. My dick liked that reason very much. What happens at the end of 30 days? I give you a head start, then come after you to carry out my assignment. Dai, Alessio, you expect me to keep fucking you knowing this is what awaits? He shrugged like this was no big deal. You could disappear somewhere I can't find you, or you could kill me first. Do you honestly believe either of those things are possible? No. Dio santo, this man. I'll agree on one condition. Oh, are we negotiating? He leaned back and folded his arms across his chest. An annoying smirk spread across his face. Let's hear what you think a month of fucking me is worth, and it can't be for me to drop the hit. I knew he wouldn't consider it, which is why I was asking for something different. Help me figure out who planted that car bomb. He sat perfectly still, a statue, as he thought this over. What if I can't help you? I thought you could find anyone. No, I can always find you.
I went back to the stove and relit the burner. The risotto could probably be saved. You're saying you can't figure out who was responsible. I'm saying it's been 4 years, and if your father believes the party responsible is dead, then I'm inclined to believe it. I'm not willing to bet my life on that. I'll sleep easier once I know who did it. You think your father would risk your life so casually? No, of course not. I rolled my shoulders. He wants me back in Siderno, so I think he doesn't care whether the party responsible is dead or not. So, go back to Siderno. Have your father help you find these people. I won't put my family at risk. He started chuckling. Giulio, your father is the risk. The money, the empire, not you. Back to this. Alessio believed a low-level associate of my father planted the bomb as a retaliation. I was more inclined to believe it was personal, against me. But it didn't matter. The bastards had killed Paolo, and I would make them pay. If someone murdered your nonna, I asked him quietly, would you let it go? Would you assume they were dead or care whether the target was really you or not? He sighed heavily. No, I wouldn't. I would hunt them down and peel the skin from their bones. I gestured with my free hand. Now you understand.